Hold on.
Don't fall out of your chair.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, that's a pier. Hold on, I have to zoom in.
Well, it's today. Look at how many tourists are.
There are no masks.
Yeah, it's jam-packed over there.
Are they coming back?
Yeah.
No masks.
Yeah, there should be masks.
Have you closed your deal, Lakeisha?
Not really. I have a couple of options. One of which, is that I've had a change of heart toward my neighbor that stole my villa, and so I was really pleasant to her.
What?
Tonight.
And there's a neighbor. Come on. That's
Tell
not
us more, please.
Oh, well, she's trying to rent out the whole resort, and so she rented my villa for a year and then tried to charge me an upmarket price. And so I've been just a little bit cold toward her. I mean, still pleasant, but, not super nice. And but tonight there was an amazing sunset, and she and I happened to be out, admiring it. So I shared a photo, PTR again. And I sent her this photo with, some hearts and palm trees and just said, Sawadee ka. So my Thai smile turned from like, you know what, there are so many things I could say to you right now to, it is so good to see you and look at this beautiful sunset.
Oh,
that is very sweet.
Upside down, Lakeisha. That's awesome.
That's very nice.
Lakeisha, here's what happens though, is oftentimes these things go quite bad. And for example, normally what happens is Thais don't really like Russians. And so what happens is the Thais aren't, and the Russians don't really speak English, and the Thais don't really speak English, but they have to barely communicate together through both having broken English.
Yes.
So, and they're culturally just very different.
Opposite.
Yeah, almost
right?
opposite.
Yeah.
So the Russians have a hard time finding a place to rent, to stay, for many reasons. A, the Thais don't promote their locations in Russia, and the Russians who arrive have a very hard time finding a place because the Thais don't want to rent to them. So,
what's so crazy? I have 2 Russian neighbors now that you mention it.
Mm-hmm. So Russians who can find a place, if a Thai does rent to a Russian, they're going to charge them extra. And the Russians are happy to pay extra. So, because they know how difficult it is for them to find a place. But once they find a place, they coordinate very tightly with each other to try and find places. And then once they find a place, they will try to rent the whole resort. And then put the resort on the internet. They'll make a website for it and put it in Russian. And double the prices, and the Russians are happy to rent them. And then all of a sudden you have a whole resort full of Russians. And so what happens is they'll come to, let's say you own a bunch of bungalows. They'll come to you, they'll rent one, you say great, and they say, oh, can I rent another one for my sister? Yeah, okay, great. And another one for my brother, and then his friend and his friend and his friend, and then they next thing you know, you've rented out your whole resort. And they've got, you normally would rent out a 1-bedroom to one family, maybe a couple with 1, maybe 2 kids. They're renting it out to a 1-bedroom bungalow to 3 families, all squeezing in there simultaneously. And this is what then the Thais call the police and say, get these people out of here. This is ridiculous. This is like insanity. Like now, and then what happens is, because the Russians have invested in this, then because they're behaving not in a very Thai way, they resist. The Thais say, you have to go out now. I'm not, this is over. This agreement is finished. And the Russians are like, no, it's not. And
the battle has just begun.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And then what happens is you get this very strong-headed kind of Russian mafia versus Thai police, and then eventually Thai military. And
goodness.
What the Russians don't realize is they're going to lose that one every time.
Of course, it's Thai home ground. What are they talking
right.
about?
But in each case, the Russians try to because they have a whole community and they work together, and some of them have mafia ties, and then they start flexing like, you don't want to mess with Mother Russia, and then the ties teach them how it really works in Thailand, and then
Yeah, and like
and
we
then they
were
find lots of
saying,
dead Russian bodies.
Oh
Eh?
how
no.
we were saying when the Norwegians checked in, Tyler. I mean, and this goes beyond just Thailand, but I think sometimes people assume that if a culture has softer qualities that they're pushovers, you don't want to mess with the
100%.
Thai. There are 14 different iterations of the Thai smile. Not all of them are nice. Some of them mean that I will jack you up, but not in your face.
It's my smile.
and,
I thought
and
they are
you
all
know, I
and
have
nice.
to
and Russians are
explain
not
to my
strong
yeah,
swimmers, it turns out.
Tyler,
Because they
Tyler.
can't do
But
nude snorkeling.
but yeah, I think
They
that there's
Yes, they
some
do
very
late
good
night
reason
snorkeling
to
with backpacks full of rocks. It's really
no, don't do that.
a really
Don't do
unique
that.
thing that they do.
Yeah, don't take their softness and their welcoming demeanor
At all.
Or
for
weakness at all.
wait, just real quick, and then we'll get to the subject at hand. Remember how when I came and you said, there were these two people that refused to like submit their documents to enter the
Yeah.
island,
Yes.
right?
Just recently. Yeah.
And yeah, and so there is like this Thai back channel basically made up of all of the villagers.
Hmm. Yeah, I know.
And people were floating these two people,
It,
these two individuals photos
exactly.
on these back channels.
Exactly.
And yeah, don't
Know
don't
your
mess with
enemy.
them.
No, well, so
Don't mess with
what
them.
the tourists don't know that the long-term locals know is the locals share like a WhatsApp group on the island. And if there was a bad actor, tourist on the island, that person's photo circulates instantly to the entire island.
So quick.
And they don't realize why they can't find a room, why the restaurants are refusing to serve them, why it's just,
Oh, it's a
or
boycott.
yeah, it just gets very funny very quickly.
Scratch the trip to
Interesting.
Thailand, Chris.
No,
Oh,
no,
That's
no.
very
Just
good.
be
this sounds
polite to the
like the culture
locals.
in
Just be
Louisiana.
polite.
It's a
That's all.
beautiful place.
This
Yeah.
Just
sounds
be
like a
polite.
culture in Louisiana. That's what we have here as well. Same thing.
Yeah, just
Okay.
be polite and you can have a wonderful time.
Sounds like getting Visit Thailand as a sponsor isn't an option now.
The Thailand Tourism Board, TAT, it's called.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it would be spelled Thailand with a Y.
It,
For Tyler.
So,
Lakeisha PTR, my sunset from last night.
Oh, that's incredible.
Tyler, have you do
Beautiful.
your
That's
live
beautiful.
Twitter?
yes.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yours
thank
is
you. Yes,
pretty
I need to do that.
too.
Twitter. Let's fix the live
Yep.
stream.
And
Happy Friday.
yeah, okay.
It's Friday,
Hand
y'all.
raise check, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Tyler, thanks for the tip yesterday. I tried it yesterday and it worked.
Which one?
The Twitter stream. I use
Oh, yeah.
Restream.
Restream.io. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, I
Yeah.
see. Oh, that's fast.
That
And
worked.
those, yeah.
Okay. Here we
And the air
go.
horn.
Yes.
Air horn.
Where is the air horn? It's right about there.
Oh,
Where's the headlines? It's right here. So
do this.
Let's go.
please put your trays in the upright position. Cheryl will be coming around to collect your
Please
garbage.
return. Please return the
I,
stewardess
I
to
can
her
I can
rightful
just
Checking.
I
position.
can just picture it as well.
Please
Yes.
And
put
Cheryl
your
would be
Tony.
Being
like, Cheryl
served
would
with
be like,
nuts and
Yes.
wine.
Switch
sir.
off all your mobile phones.
Sir, can you please
Put
put
it
your
on
chair up, please?
airplane
Thank you.
sir,
mode.
I said
I
fully,
could see Cheryl now. Your
fully.
stomach is
Power
too big.
off
I
your
can't get this
electronic devices.
seatbelt over
Sir,
you. Help
can you
yourself.
close your
Sir,
laptop,
Yeah,
please?
could you
yeah.
please
Sir,
remove
please
your
close the
snare
laptop,
socks?
sir.
How come I'm
Please
so
Fasten your
fat?
please
And
put
keep
your phone
and
in
seatbelt.
keep your mask
airplane
on.
mode.
So fat.
Tyler, I'm getting 10,000 back channels. He won't put his tray up.
Could you
Yeah.
please put your mask back on?
Sir, the
Okay.
mask needs to be above the nose.
Sir, headphones out now, please. Okay.
Yeah.
Clear the aisle.
Behave.
Yeah. Please put your bag under your seat. Here we go. So the top story, Friday, October 22nd, is from Protocol. It says that Twitter says its research shows its algorithms amplify right-leaning content more than left-leaning content, but doesn't know what causes the amplification. It's a mystery. They're stumped. What's going on? And why are they even sharing this? Twitter shared its own research today that showed its algorithm amplify right-leaning political content more than left-leaning. Why is that? They don't know. The trouble of reading this very long article. They have no idea. So they're going to do a little more investigation, and then they're going to circle back. And then the question as to why are they even sharing this? Again, we're not exactly sure.
Can I posit
Sure.
I think that there already is research that supports enraging content gets shared more, and I thought that Twitter's demographic is more left leaning than right. So that simple math would reflect that if the left gets inflamed more on a post, they're gonna reply and do things with it. But that's just, I don't know. Those are two things we know about how things get shared.
Isn't that like my question is like when for AI or machine learning, there are algorithms that get fed in, right? There is a starting point, there is a base for it for the machine to do what it does. So isn't that a good place to start?
Well, Twitter was notorious during the 2020 election of going after conservatives and downgrading how many people were following them. I mean, almost every known conservative, big conservative media person was saying, geez, I lost, 5,000 people overnight, followers. So this might be an attempt to promote Twitter to the conservative side because that's 50% of the U.S. population.
Trying to appeal to the parlor population.
Yeah.
It's a weird one. To be continued. So the next story is from Reuters. It says they have sources that ransomware gang R Evil was hacked and forced offline this week by an active multi-country operation that includes the U.S., which makes sense because the U.S. is the focus of R Evil with their Colonial Pipeline hack and the meat supply company hacks and Uncle Joe. To his credit, I'm even going to bust out our biggest award, which is the clap sound effect for Joe Biden for actually taking this cyber threat shit seriously and building up, taking the necessary steps to start to combat this craziness. And it's a major undertaking, and they've done a whole lot of steps. They had even a week or so ago, 30 countries all come together at the White House for a summit to work together to combat this stuff. And it seems to be paying dividends already by taking down the most notorious cyber ransomware gang. And addressing it with Putin in Geneva and getting all the big tech companies working together, getting all big companies working together, just sharing information is really, really key between the cybersecurity experts of these companies. And like I said, this is a very promising headline that they've managed to kind of push back a bit. Let's see if that continues. And by the way, it has huge implications. I mean, taking down an oil pipeline on the East Coast. Thank God it was during the summer when they did that on the East Coast. And, there was a week or so where people didn't really have consistent access to fuel at gas stations. And then they hit the meat pipeline or the supply chain. And holy cow, if they had stacked up because here's what's funny is they potentially can find vulnerabilities and then sit on them and rack up dozens of them, in fact, hundreds of them, and just sit quietly and then attack them all simultaneously. And you could effectively, potentially, take down a whole lot of the food chain, the oil, the energy chain, and even the water systems simultaneously in the winter. And my God, would that shake? That would be not, I mean,
An act of war.
bigger. That would be the biggest act of war the world's seen. That would be more catastrophic than, you know, the previously known ways of attacking a country. That would just be, incredible. So it's a whole, this is a threat that we got to take incredibly seriously. And that's why I use the collabs. The kudos to the Biden administration for giving it the appropriate amount of consideration.
Because they just met last week, right?
Yeah,
Already striking.
the 30 countries. Yeah.
That's impressive. Good
And
job.
also the Department of Defense is doing some collaborative work with the UK to increase their AI efficiency in all spectrums just because they're concerned about this. So there's a collective effort here to respond to any threats that come their
Oh,
way.
there was also a political, and this is an interesting point, that the declaration of ransomware attacks as national security issue, it was the necessary step to unlock the U.S. intelligence agencies and military assets to be able to get involved. Because if it's not a national security issue, the national security agencies can't step in. So it's a classification issue. They had to pass that these ransomware attacks are national security issues. So that was a necessary step as well. Kind of the bureaucratic red tape issues. So the third article is a look at the cultural and investment shifts Intel undertook to build a leading-edge foundry business, which some say could take 5 years to fully appraise. Intel wants to be a foundry again. Will this time be different? Last month, Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger stepped to a podium and on a hazy, wind-whipped day just outside Phoenix. Isn't this awesome? Gesslinger exclaimed, gesturing over his shoulder. Behind him, two large pieces of construction equipment posed theatrically atop the Arizona soil, framing an organized tangle of pipes, steel, and fencing at the company's Ocotillo campus. If this doesn't get you excited, check your pulse, he said. And a handful of executives and government officials applauded the appropriate points. But yeah, so they've got a whole bunch of work ahead of them, which will take a bunch of years. And kudos again to, I can't believe I'm giving two big shout outs to the Biden administration back to back here, because again, they've understood the seriousness of the supply, the semiconductor chip shortage, and the need to kind of, bring that back in house and onshore it. And it's happening in a very big way. And we read those headlines as they happened, and they were done very expeditiously, where as soon as the computer chip shortage started happening, the White House called together all of the top leaders of the world in the computer chips. The boss from TSMC and Intel, Google, Apple, all came to the White House for an emergency meeting to figure that shit out, because that is some serious business. And again, huge kudos that they acted surprisingly swiftly for, a country of this size. So,
And it's called intellectual honesty, that you can separate the past from what's actually going on. And that's what I'm hoping we could drive going forward, right? It's like we didn't like Facebook when we heard the news, but as we heard it evolve, our stance and position changed. I would hope that going forward, anybody could be what's called reasonable, meaning as things come in, you can kind of process them independently of the past, because I think that's what we need going forward. Sorry to get on my soapbox, but I wanted to highlight that part. Is that's why you're saying this, right? Is that typically we don't associate competency with the Biden administration, but here they go.
I
Excuse
was
me.
going to add something too, but David, go ahead first if you'd like.
No, no, no. I won't. I'll simply say, back in the '80s, Phoenix and Scottsdale were Motorola land. If you remember that semiconductor, they did a bunch of other things, but repatriating semiconductors, it's wise and good for lots of different reasons besides national security, given the decoupling and things like that.
Yeah, I was just going to add that Intel's chairman of the board is the former CEO of Medtronic, who happens to be an advisor to my medical device company. And they were talking about the fragility of supply chain around chips. I mean, it wasn't just in the context of medical devices. There was a reason he sort of migrated to Intel after leaving Medtronic, and they had their kind of finger on the pulse of this even pre-pandemic, and as the supply chain has been hit as hard as it's been hit. So he also, of course, has been very active with administration officials throughout the last three administrations. So they really have, I think the positioning that they have in the political sphere on this is solid for them, and they'll maybe we're a half a step, if not one full step ahead of some of the other folks on this train.
What's interesting is that Intel is down 10.5% today, and there's a headline I'm gonna
Well,
look it up, but
that's
Reuters
because they
say,
just had their quarter earnings report and it sucked.
Mm.
yeah,
But that was kind of known that it was going to suck. I mean, what happens is the market has their estimates that there are expectations, and if the company doesn't meet the market expectations or estimates, stock goes down, and that's what happens, and that's what happened here, and that's why the whole market started off on a very sour note this morning, which I predicted would happen 9 hours ago when we did our last meeting. I said tomorrow morning when the market opens, it's going to have a big downward pressure because Intel
Mm.
did its Q3 report. Snapchat also just did its Q3 report. Both of them didn't meet expectations, which then spooks the whole market that tech is going to have a bad quarter potentially, because we just had two of the big early tech companies in the Q3 report season, which were just now underway. Both had lackluster results. That spooks a whole lot of people to get out of whatever tech companies they might be holding for fear that they will also have lackluster Q3 results, which they'll all have to do in the next week or so. And then because tech is so heavily weighted in the S&P 500, that sends the whole market down a bit. So that's why that's my impression. That's why I predicted the market would open
And
south today, and it did.
doesn't the market show what happened previously and not necessarily responding to what happened today? And what happened today would be evident in coming months.
no, the market shows what's expected to happen in the next 6 months,
Yeah,
so it's
so that's what
forward
I'm
looking.
saying. So today's dip is not related to what's happening today.
Mm,
No, it's Tyler's right. It's a direct impact. IBM had the same effect yesterday, right? IBM tanked hard yesterday because their revenue was not what was expected in their earnings report.
I'm still optimistic that a lot of the other tech companies like the Googles and whatnot, Apple, blah, 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 will actually show good results for Q3. So we'll see. But
Yeah, you got to get those details right because Snapchat was they were down because of the Apple privacy setting. If you read what the
mhm.
CEO was, he was describing that, which it didn't get affected as much as I would have thought if that privacy setting was so effective. So they must have really scrambled and got their act together to
But
shore up their ad
didn't
revenue.
Apple's ad revenue increase 57% or something like that, Tyler?
That was particularly just on the amount of they're basically are now monopolizing the ads inside of the app store. The app store. So when people want to buy the top spot for calculator app or calendar app or productivity app, or if you are TikTok and you want to promote yourself when people search for Facebook in the app store, then you can buy the little spot above Facebook and say, oh, we know you search for Facebook, but how about TikTok? So that's a whole bunch of new money coming to Apple.
But digital world is holding up well, though.
Say again.
Digital world is
The
DWAC.
digital space in general, tech in general.
No, Digital World Acquisition. DWAC.
Oh, you mean the Trump one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the Trump's social media thing. The SPAC company that is kind of the shell company for Trump's new social media thing. That thing exploded yesterday.
It's still exploding.
Yeah, that was like one of the biggest movers on the market yesterday, like 35% or some crazy shit like that.
I knew that would happen. I knew that would happen.
300%.
Yeah, it was wild. So the next one is Windows 11 update fixes AMD CPU latency. Who cares? The next one, FTC study on 6 largest ISPs finds that some ISPs, internet service providers, fail to fully inform consumers on how their data is monetized, such as using browser history to serve ads. Bet you didn't know that. A lot of people didn't know that. So Senator Blumenthal tweets that broadband firms monitoring our web browsing, cell phone providers selling location data to advertisers. This new FTC report is an urgent call for strict rules and strong enforcement to protect against broadband company spying. And it's kind of comical to geeks, that this shit's been going on since the beginning of the internet, and the politicians just are figuring this out, basically. And Senator Markey says it's not just big tech gobbling up troves of sensitive information about us. The broadband behemoths are tracking our every move online too. To which every geek in the room laughs. Oh, good
Wow,
morning.
such a
Good,
surprising news. Wow.
good morning, Grandma. Good morning, Grandpa. Yes. And there's airplanes flying up above too. You can't see them, but they're up there. It's, and then China's like, holy shit. You guys don't even like, the Chinese politicians are like, are you guys for real? Are you for real? You didn't know this was going on. Yeah.
They really didn't know.
They honestly didn't know. They're publicly tweeting it out.
Honestly, didn't know, and I'm not failing to admit it. I'm shamelessly admitting it. I didn't know.
The
Yeah,
broadband behemoths are tracking our every move online too. It's unacceptable that if you're over the age of 12 in this country, you have zero privacy rights online. Congress must act. Well, you're a senator,
I
Ed
love
Markey.
this. This is
Wow.
rich.
Senator Chuck Grassley asking Mark Zuckerberg, how could you possibly offer a free service
Yeah.
and never charge people? I
Yeah.
mean, it's incredible who we've elected to run this
I
country.
just wish he would have just said, you know what? I guess we're just lucky.
What is internet?
It's a series of tubes and
It's a
pipes.
series of tubes, according to U.S. politicians.
Something
There's
Never
another
Before created.
there's another piece of this. Ignorance is one thing, but just in terms of investment in stock portfolio, I think the Fed just came out with a new rule yesterday that's going to restrict pretty substantially how people who work at the Fed can make investments in a single. I think it's a like single company stock on Wall Street. So if we could get something like that, I don't know what the rules are with Congress in terms of how can they personally invest, but as I understand, it's probably they can do whatever they want to a degree. I don't know. That's a whole other kind of malincentive, right? That's driving up a f ton of these decisions that they make.
So the next one's quite interesting and totally related. New York Times. Russian official says that Russia's deep packet inspection technology is now installed at 500 telecom locations, covering 100% of mobile and 73% of wired internet traffic. It says, hold on here. Let's open this up here. Here we go. On March 10th, Twitter users in Russia suddenly experienced a sharp slowdown in service. Russian authorities wanted Twitter to remove more than 3,000 illegal posts, which human rights groups saw as an effort to stifle dissent. When Twitter did not comply, the government was ready. It deployed a new technology so it could do the job itself. With coercion and black boxes, Russia installs a digital iron curtain. By Paul Moser, who used to cover China, still does. And it says Russia's boldest moves to censor the internet began in the most mundane of ways with a series of bureaucratic emails and forms. The messages sent by Russia's powerful internet regulator demanded technical details like traffic numbers, equipment specifications, and connection speeds from companies that provide internet and telecom services across the country. Then the black boxes arrived. The telecom companies had no choice but to step aside as government-approved technicians installed the equipment alongside their own computer systems and servers. Sometimes caged behind lock and key, the new gear linked back to a command center in Moscow, giving authorities startling new powers to block, filter, and slow down websites that they did not want the Russian people to see. The process, underway since 2019, represents the start of perhaps the world's most ambitious digital censorship effort outside of China. Under President Vladimir Putin, who once called the internet a CIA project, and views the web as a threat to his power, the Russian government is attempting to bring the country's once open, freewheeling internet to heel. The gear has been tucked inside the equipment rooms of Russia's largest telecom and internet service providers, including MTS, Megaphone, and Rostelcom, a senior Russian lawmaker revealed this year. It affects the vast majority of the country's more than 120 million wireless and home internet users, according to researchers and activists. The world got its first glimpse of Russia's new tool in action when Twitter was slowed to a crawl in the country this spring. It was the first time the filtering system had been put to work, researchers and activists said. Other sites have since been blocked, including several linked to the jailed opposition leader Alexei Navalny. This is something the world can copycat, said Laura Cunningham, a former head of State Department programs on internet freedom. Russia's censorship model can quickly and easily be replicated by other authoritarian governments. Russia's censorship technology sits between companies that provide internet access and people who are browsing the web on a phone or laptop, often likened to intercepting mailed letters. The software, known as Deep Packet Inspection, filters through data traveling across an internet network, slowing down websites or removing whatever it has been programmed to block. The cutoffs threaten to upend Russia's thriving digital life. While the political system has clung to Mr. Putin's cult of personality and television broadcasters and newspapers face tight restrictions, online culture has brimmed with activism, dark humor, and foreign content. Broadly censoring the internet could return the country to a deeper form of isolation akin to a Cold War era. Here's the quote. I was born in an era of super free internet and now I'm seeing it collapsing, says Ksenia Ermoshina, a researcher from Moscow now working at the French National Center for Scientific Research. She published a paper in April about the censorship technology. The censorship infrastructure was described by 17 Russian telecom experts, activists, and researchers and academics with knowledge of the work, many of whom declined to be named because they feared reprisal. Government documents, which were reviewed by the New York Times, also outlined some of the technical details and demands made to telecom and internet service providers. Russia is using the censorship tech to gain more leverage over Western internet companies, in addition to other strong-arm tactics and legal intimidation. In September, after the government threatened to arrest local employees for Google and Apple, the companies removed apps run by supporters of Mr. Navalny ahead of the national elections. The government internet agency, or the internet regulator, overseeing the effort, can now go further. It has threatened to take down YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram if they do not block certain content on their own. After authorities slowed down Twitter this year, the company agreed to remove dozens of posts deemed illegal by the government. One more quote here. It's striking that this hasn't gotten the attention of the Biden administration, says Michael McFaul, the former American ambassador to Russia in the Obama administration. He criticized Apple, Facebook, Google, and Twitter for not speaking out more forcefully against Russia's policies. There's nothing they can do. Yeah, we've been watching this from the beginning with the Twitter slowdown scenario, as they said back in March and April. We watched that unfold in real time. we watched them elevate to force people to have team members on the ground, kind of copying India in doing that. And then we watched them a couple weeks ago threaten to arrest those local Moscow-based team members if they didn't remove Alexei Navalny's app the day before the recent elections a few weeks ago. And now the latest is they're going to fine these big tech companies 20% of their Russian revenues, which might cause them to back out of Russia, which I'm sure Russia would love to see them do. Anyway, and the interesting quote in this, which is totally obvious, of course, is how easily replicatable this is by any other countries who would choose to do it. Okay, so
Well, they don't have to really replicate that, right? We have seen it already. I mean, Egypt usually shut down their internet during the Arab Springs, right? Ethiopia does it. I remember during national exams, even Nigeria did it with the Twitter, right? So these things have been happening. Really,
yeah,
it's not
but
it's not a new thing.
but governments get kind of a black eye when they turn off their internets. And in this case, they don't have to turn off the entire internet. They just turn off the one service that they can turn it off website by website instead of the whole thing.
Isn't that what Nigeria did? Like, just only got rid of a little bit of Twitter.
They couldn't
That's I think
they couldn't get rid of Twitter because they haven't done what Russia's done. So what they did was tell everyone it's illegal and we will punish you, and and tried to scare everyone from stopping Twitter. But if
I
they
think they did try to stop it, and then I think some people were using VPN and
right,
tried to
they were telling
circumvent
Twitter
that.
that you need to turn it off here. Like they didn't want Twitter being
Right.
there. They were telling both sides, the users and the app, to both stop. I don't think they had the technical ability to stop them. They could call the ISPs and ask the ISPs to stop it.
I mean, I know that. I mean, this is a very long time. I was back in Ethiopia, I think, during election in 2005. Facebook wasn't accessible. I don't know how they did that, but it wasn't accessible on the ground
Well,
for
it looks
like a certain month.
like Tomiwa, who just joined. That sounds like a Nigerian name, and you seem to be a geek. So give us the lowdown, Tomiwa.
Hi, Tyler.
Hey.
Yeah. So you're right about Twitter in Nigeria. I am Nigerian and I'm based in Nigeria, and they did insist that the ISPs actually restrict that website from being accessible. So that's how they were able to kind of
Mm-hmm.
restrict Twitter in Nigeria.
Yeah, I think that's what it is because I think Nigeria has a bit robust and private sector ISPs here in Ethiopia, and I think some countries the telecom is monopolized, and the government had at least it's trying to get into private sector a monopoly of ISP. They are the only one that we're doing so. They that's what I remember. They kind of stopped Facebook after the election in 2005. So I don't know how they did it because my assumption was because they were the only internet service provider at that point.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's jump back into it, and I'm seeing all the whole bunch of tardy friends in the class here.
நான் பேசுறது உனக்கு கேட்கலையா?
Oh, really? Is that right? Okay, Venkat, do you want me to mute you?
So,
That wasn't me, Tyler.
No, that was this new guy I just invited up called Venkat. Let's see if he can behave himself. Okay.
Yep.
The next one is from Mac Rumors. Apple says the 16-inch MacBook Pro with the M1 Max processor will feature a high power mode for intensive sustained workloads. Because that is no ordinary processor. That's the M1 Max, baby. That thing needs a whole lot of juice. So if you're doing some intensive compiling or video edit rendering, you're going to need the high power mode for the intensive sustained workloads. And then the next one is Hong Kong-based Zanpool, whose software facilitates faster crypto and fiat settlements, raises $27 million. Washington Post says that the terms of service agreement that the users have to click I accept to use Donald Trump's new Truth Social network shows that it bans excessive use of capital letters, ironically, as the brand Truth is in all caps, and it reserves the right to ban users. I think that's rather obvious, and hopes to benefit from Section 230 protections. Again, that's completely obvious, although, again, a bit ironic given that Trump is trying to remove Section 230 from Facebook and Twitter. Okay. And then we found out that it's being run on Mastodon, which is actually a smart move, I would say, by whoever architected the site. That will give it quite a bit of security. It solves quite a bit of it's a good choice in 2021. And then the next one is from the Washington Post, although the New York Times is now covering this as well, that Lyft, the ride-sharing app, is like an Uber competitor in America, Lyft releases its first safety report saying that it received 4,000 reports of sexual assault, including 360 reports of rape, on its app from 2017 to 2019. And Uber released similar set of data for its app back at the end of 2019. And Lyft has waited 2 years to release this data, saying, oh, well, we wanted to wait because we know sometimes it takes people a year or two to come around to decide they want to, say that something happened. And why now? Why the delay? It's a bit weird. And to me personally, it's shockingly, disturbingly high numbers of 4,158 reports of sexual assault on the app in 2017, 18, and 19, in those 3 years, including 360 reports of rape. That's every 3 days. Holy shit.
How does that work when you're a registered Lyft or Uber driver? I mean, you got to be one of the stupidest people around to create, to violate and get busted for something that's going to put you, that's going to put you in jail. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
stupidity.
And why, if they are that common, shouldn't there be cameras in the cars as how China's version of Uber and Lyft called Didi had an incident as well where somebody was allegedly raped, and Didi required everybody put in cameras and microphones in the cars that the data went to Didi. And
also, what do they say about their vetting process? They tend to say that they've been triple vetted. What is your vetting process if you're allowing people like that to drive?
And by the way, actually, there was some report as well that passengers do harm to drivers as well. That's
100% at a
yeah,
high rate.
yeah.
so somebody's DMing me saying that the reason people are putting these out, like this one that just got put out, the Twitter one that just got put out, right? Like Twitter just put out one saying how far right views are shared more often than left views. And I said the same question. Why are they putting that out? That's not something they are even expected to put out. Why put it out there? How does that benefit you to put that out there? What am I missing? And so one of the comments in my DMs is that every internal report is going to be voluntarily sent out as a press release before it gets leaked. As we have seen in recent days, and I've even commented, holy shit, is everything leaking these days? I've said those exact words multiple times in the past week. This week, there was everything is like every article is like Bloomberg's got sources, Newsweek has sources, Vice has sources, New York Times has sources, leaked documents. Everything's just leaking like crazy. So I guess that is a good strategy. Like if you got some bad news, you might as well do it as a press release rather than have it leaked, because if it's leaked, then it seems like you were intentionally hiding this, and then that gets the attention of the authorities and whatnot. So that there could be some.
I'm wondering what they how they're defining right and left, what their
In Twitter's
definition is
case,
for
yeah.
that.
Yep, that's a fair question.
Hey Tyler, I got a quick update on the Trump new website.
Okay.
The company Digital World Accusation Corp
Yep.
has shot up. It's up 150% today. I know yesterday a lot of people were joking around about investing
Yep.
in this, but it was a $20 stock yesterday. It's up to like $110 right now.
It went from 20 to 110. That's a 500%.
Well, but today it's
Yeah,
up
this is what I say.
150%.
Yesterday it was 300%, and today it's up
Yeah,
150.
it's crazy. It closed yesterday at $45. It's trading right now at 117.
If you remember yesterday, Dr. Danish was like, guys, would anybody think any less of me if I invested in this?
And I
Yeah, I
told
think
him
Letitia said that
no,
too. Yeah.
get that
Well,
money.
if you think about it, Trump has 74 million votes. Twitter has 73 million Americans.
Hey
and
guys, I
then,
admitted it to you
and it's
guys already
worth like
twice. I
140
voted for you
billion.
twice. I admit it.
Well,
Sorry, John.
it went.
Also, yes, we are judging.
What was the market cap? It quote unquote SPAC'd, IPO'd at a 1 billion market cap.
Yeah, 1.2, I think it was.
And what's it up to now?
It seems something like 3 billion at the moment, but it's not. I don't see it pretty well because it's not updated.
Yeah, but 1 billion does seem relatively low for potentially a big social media network. But
that's the point.
Yeah.
Like if you think about it, like he had like 74 million votes, so and then Twitter has 73 million American on it, and then it have a valuation of 150 billion, I think.
He's a businessman after all. Now we know the reason why the Trump brand is valuable.
Well, it's also a very, it's a crafty play, right? Because again, it's not just the 50% of the population, but it's also that they felt disenfranchised and, they were being, banned, or a lot of their things they were posting on Twitter or Facebook were being censored. And so he's really reaching out to a population that is really ripe for the taking.
We're taking Trump stakes and we're going to truth.
In drinking Trump
I've
water.
said it before and I'll say it again. Rush Limbaugh had a large following since his death. There's been no one to fill the void, and Trump is it.
Tyler,
Yeah.
Yep.
you mean America really have no talents for leader?
Have no talents for leaders. Yes, because
Carol, are you just finding out? Are you literally just finding this out that Americans have a poop sandwich to pick from every election series?
But America Got Talent.
She
And
just
it's like,
found out,
either
Chris. In all fairness, she just found out about 30 minutes ago about Bob Marley.
Oh
And
my
his
God.
curly
No.
hair instead of dreadlocks.
Hey, this is like this is
Oh
like when a freshman comes into college. When are we gonna get her on a beer bong?
Okay.
No, so where's the leadership for America? I mean,
They're
what's going to
running
happen
companies.
in the future? I know it's okay to run companies. Singapore is run like a company, which is okay. But
yeah, if the president could make a profit, like if it was based, then you could get, if the president
Yeah,
was
like if you were paid
compensated.
millions to be president.
Here, this could be the solution. the president could be compensated based on a percentage of profits, like a normal
GDP.
company, or even
Okay.
GDP.
Yep.
If
Yeah, why not?
if their salary was tied to their performance economically, then we could remove the debt and blah blah blah. But
Yeah.
that's not how
If
it
that's a
works.
solution, just do it. But in Singapore, the prime minister is still paid much less compared to the private CEOs, although they have much bigger responsibility. So that's not the point, right? The point is, America is so big. I'm sure you can find talents, right? Who is
Nope.
willing to serve the country, right?
No.
Not
No,
at all.
No. No.
no.
No.
If you
No,
look
Nobody
at our
it's
wants
a
to go
primary,
anywhere near that.
system.
You see,
Nobody wants. Nope.
then how? What's going to happen
It
in
it's
10 years'
largely
time?
It's like you
China
avoid the
is doing this,
plague,
and then
Cheryl.
US.
It's
To
just
be
like,
honest with you, I want US to be better.
We
oh,
all
it's
do.
we all
Keep
want it
dreaming,
to be
Cheryl.
better, but people avoid it like plague. I mean, that cesspool.
and
well,
Sorry.
you have to
it's
look at
the
how it works out, right? Where we have the checks and balances, and our goal, our desire is really to have them like do no bad, right? So as long as
Mm.
there's not a one-sided government like we have right now, where it's all Democrat, and by 2022 it'll be half Republican. So that's our desire, because we know we're never gonna do have things like firing on all cylinders. So as long as we have
Mm.
gridlock and we're able to just say status quo, we'll deal with it. We'll love it. I mean, that's good enough.
I
Unfortunately.
mean, well, I think that will
Mm.
also
That's quite
precipitate
sad.
collapse. And I would also add that the a huge reason why it's a shit sandwich is the campaign finance system. It's sort of systemically built in.
Oh, the lobbying, aka corruption.
Yeah, lobbying just and you know, ever since the mid 1970s, political bribery has essentially been legalized. So the people that
Oh God.
are that rise to the top have a tremendous financial advantage,
Mm-hmm.
and they tend to have very specific opinions. And I would argue more right leaning opinions, economically, not socially, and that's one of the reasons why we've slid so far
Yeah.
in that direction.
So American have no chance to trust their government because nobody will take up. No good leaders will ever exist. Is that what
Correct.
you're trying to say?
Yeah, that's no, it'll never.
That's quite sad.
I mean, it could. It's just that the things that need to be fixed are so unsexy and systemically ingrained that I'm I try not to be cynical, but it's very difficult to see it getting fixed.
Okay. The next one is from CNBC that Sam Altman's WorldCoin launches its cryptocurrency that gives, in exchange for users' eye scans, launches its cryptocurrency that it gives in exchange for users' eye scans. It says it has 100,000 users globally and is valued at $1 billion. And we're hoping for more clarity. Strangely, not a lot of people covering this one other than CNBC. Bloomberg it says a free crypto project scanned eyeballs of 130,000 people. And
I saw it in it's Donna here. I saw it in the Wall Street Journal. Um, I just think it's, who knows what. I mean, it's just another one of these product launches that people pile in and think it's going to go up. And let's see where it is in 6 months from now. The tech for the eye thing may be good, but the coin may be worthless.
right, I think the coin is a gimmick, honestly, just to entice people to give up their eye data. The next one is an analysis of 23,000 websites of nonprofits. About 86% had third-party cookies or trackers, and some, like Planned Parenthood, were tracking users' keystrokes. And then they confronted them and they said, well, we compete with private companies and we need all that data, was their short answer. But the point is that the data of these nonprofits these nonprofits are specializing in things like abortions and mental health issues, and they're selling the data. And this is kind of very personal stuff. And people aren't aware that it's happening. The next one is from the New York Times. It says Maria Ressa discusses the role of social media in the rise of polarization, her interactions with Zuckerberg and Sandberg in 2017, Frances Haugen, and more. The journalist whose reporting has taken on the president of the Philippines and the CEO of Facebook discusses the atom bomb. It's an interview from Kara Swisher. And it says, will Maria Ressa's Nobel Peace Prize force Mark Zuckerberg to wake up? The journalist whose reporting has taken on the president of the Philippines and the CEO of Facebook discusses the atom bomb that social media set off in our information ecosystem. Maria Ressa and Dmitry Muratov recently took home the Nobel Peace Prize, marking the first time working journalists have won the award since 1935. Reza believes the Norwegian Nobel Committee's decision to recognize journalists this year sends a signal that once again we are on the brink of the rise of fascism. Through her digital media company called Rappler, Ressa has been on the front lines of covering President Rodrigo Duterte's regime in the Philippines, exposing the leader's tactics of violence and fear. She also sounded the alarm on the role that social media platforms have played in the rise of leaders like Duterte and Donald Trump, saying that Facebook in particular exploded an atom bomb by amplifying misinformation and propaganda. Ressa's reporting has made her a target for lawsuits from the Duterte government and online harassment from his supporters. One study found almost 400,000 tweets targeting Ressa over a 13-month period, and she was convicted of cyber libel in 2020, which has made it difficult for her to leave the country. In this conversation, Kara Swisher asks Ressa to discuss the role of social media in the rise of polarization and to consider if new revelations from the Facebook whistleblower will be a game changer, and Ressa shares how her work and the onslaught of lawsuits in response to it have impacted her personal life and her family. Okay. Next one from Bloomberg. Tencent, China's biggest tech company and one of the biggest companies in the world, says a now fixed vulnerability made some WeChat content available to Google and Bing, both of which are blocked in China. WeChat content made available to Google Bing searches. China has been pushing tech firms to dismantle online barriers. Next one, Wall Street Journal. U.S. Commerce Department data shows that it issued $103 billion in export licenses for semiconductors and other products to suppliers of Huawei and SMIC from November 2020 to April 2021. So the Commerce Department data shows that suppliers of Huawei, of blacklisted Chinese companies like Huawei, maintained access to U.S. products, including semiconductors. So Huawei's been able to make some progress that the U.S. was trying to prevent. Bloomberg says that Vodafone sues the United Kingdom, claiming Fujitsu was unfairly awarded a contract to upgrade the secure network connecting 532 embassies and other government locations. Both bidders fell short of quality thresholds, filings say. London judge orders an expedited trial over procurement. Bloomberg says they have sources that South Korea's online payment service called Kakao Pay raised $1.3 billion in its Seoul IPO after pricing shares at $76 a piece, the top of the marketed range. Okay, Snapchat and TikTok testifying for the first time before Congress next week shows how lawmakers' oversight has fixated on a few major platforms thus far. There you go, Washington Post, you did it. You did it, Washington Post, and you're the only one who's done it now. Holy shit. Hallelujah.
Good job.
Washington Post. Look at you, Cristiano Lima. I hope you don't get fired for writing that post. You actually acknowledged, you said it out loud, what we've been screaming in this room for a few days now. Why is the corporate media jihad group being led by the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and Vice? And I was naming you, Washington Post, but I will now remove your list from the list of the jihad journalists.
They heard you loud and clear, Tyler.
You're off the no-fly
They
list.
received the message.
It, it and it was previously only what was the financial publication that had previously reported
Forbes.
this? Forbes, thank you.
Forbes.
So Forbes and the Washington Post. We now have two, a whole grand total of two publications that have now covered the fact that TikTok and Snapchat are testifying before Congress, and yet none of the other ones are even reporting this. Why is that? TikTok and Snapchat are testifying for the very first time ever before Congress about how their apps influence kids. Because, by the way, those are the top two apps for kids by far. So, wouldn't it make sense if we actually genuinely were pursuing the effects of social media on kids, that we would want to talk to TikTok and Snapchat, maybe a little more than Facebook, where there are no kids. So it's been fun listening to the whistleblower talk on and on about Facebook and how they're targeting kids. They already have an app for kids called Facebook Messenger for Kids. And now Senator Blumenthal and the Senate subcommittee has called in TikTok and Snapchat. By the way, it was about 48 hours ago, so you're a little late on this one, Washington Post, but better late than never. So kudos to Forbes, and now the Washington Post has joined to actually cover the headline that TikTok is going to appear before the Senate for hearing for the first time ever. And where is the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and Vice and the regular jihad suspects? Where are their headlines related to this truly newsworthy headline?
They're given, service to to TikTok in New York Times or Wall Street Journal's latest article, right? Talking about how great they are in schools.
That's right. Yeah,
Tyler,
you're
can you check
exactly
the
right. Exactly right. Yesterday, Taylor Lorenz, New York Times, wrote a goddamn kiss piece, a full-on lovey-dovey back rub, oil massage piece for TikTok about how good it is in schools.
Tyler, can you check the hand raise, please? I think Danish later on has an article to share.
So this one says TikTok and Snapchat are testifying for the first time. Their peers are in the double digits. Happy Thursday. We'd like to welcome you to the merriest season of all, NBA opening week below. TikTok and Snapchat are testifying for the first time before Congress next week. Spokespeople for the companies confirmed Wednesday as Senate lawmakers broaden their investigation into how social media platforms are affecting kid safety. Kudos to those Senate lawmakers for broadening their investigation into social media platforms and how they're affecting kids' safety, especially taking the incredibly bold step of including the platforms that the kids are actually on. That itself is a truly genius move. Meanwhile, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg is being called by the same panel to appear on Capitol Hill for what would be his 8th time in 4 years. And TikTok's never been called before, or Snapchat. Well, as far as I know, Snapchat hasn't been, but we know TikTok never has been. And the 31st time for any Facebook executive in that same time span. 31 times for Facebook, 0 times for TikTok. The kids are on TikTok. They're not on Facebook. Figure that math
I
out.
would see the lobbying from
Yep.
these. Where the money is coming
I'll tell
from.
you one other thing. I guarantee you Facebook is, when not on live hot microphones, between sessions in the email chains are saying, do you guys realize all the kids are on TikTok? It would be really nice if you actually cared about this, that you actually had TikTok here and asked them these questions. And we did see that in one of the responses from a Facebook spokesperson on camera, where she very cleverly said, that this is, social media could do better, blah, 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 blah. And it was very, Antigon Davis is who that was. It says, in recent weeks, Facebook has additionally been rocked by whistleblower Frances Haugen's disclosure of internal research suggesting the company knew its products, particularly Instagram, made some teen girls feel worse about their body image issues. Kudos again, Washington Post, for actually articulating the actual precise data point that they cherry picked, that it was about their body image issues. It wasn't as they reported. What they reported was that it's actually toxic for young people, which is a
Yay, hooray.
way broader claim. Way, way, way,
I'm
way,
convinced someone's
way,
listening to Tech News.
way broader claim. And that, by the way, that meme stuck. You had all kinds of people believing, as they tend to do, Instagram's toxic for kids. I read it in black and white on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. And they based that off of, and thank you to the Washington Post for doing some journalism here, that it was it made some teen girls feel worse about their body image issues. Senate lawmakers hauled in its head of safety, Antigon Davis, to testify on the matter last month. Yep, I remember watching that. But some researchers, such as Harvard Law School lecturer Evelyn Douek, have argued that Congress's myopic focus has made it all but turn a blind eye to several of the world's most influential sites, including TikTok, Snapchat, and YouTube, which also testify next week. That's right. So now you got fucking Harvard saying WTF. This
It's
place.
like finding a scapegoat for this developmental psychological issue that is inherent to human biology and find a scapegoat blaming on them and, problem solved.
You have the National Institute of Health 48 hours ago saying, a spokesperson from the National Institute of Health, a director from the National Institute of Health, saying that TikTok is actually totally damaging. And this is not
By far the worst.
but that's, this person's just, somebody from the National Institute of Health. In the Facebook case, nobody from National Institute of Health or from Harvard are ranting on about Facebook and Instagram. The data point from Instagram and Facebook was from internal survey that they did internally, which the whistleblower was not personally involved in any shape, way, or form. She doesn't even work at that company. So she doesn't even work at Instagram. She found a document from inside of a company she doesn't have any connection to and leaked it, knowing nothing about it. And the journalist, also not having the full context, extrapolated that Instagram's toxic because some young Instagram users on a survey said they think it makes them feel worse about themselves, in particular to this particular issue, to which professional researchers say, no, that's not how science works. That's not how data works. You can,
Chris,
psychologists
you have hot mic.
said you cannot ask somebody what they think makes them feel bad. That's not how psychology works. That's not a proper scientific research study. So Douek, as the article continues here from the Washington Post, from Harvard, who has challenged lawmakers to summon YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki. I can't pronounce that. Polish names are the worst. My
That's
mother's.
okay.
Hey, Maria, can you help us out here? Is Maria in the audience?
What's the spelling?
Can you check the hand raise,
Oh yeah, no,
Tyler?
we have who's the other Polish friend who usually joins us? Wojcicki. Wojcicki?
Sounds like Wojcicki.
Just give a
Woshiki?
nickname.
Wojcicki?
Okay, so Susan Wojcicki, in particular, to testify for the first time. YouTube CEO, first fucking time, celebrated the lineup for the hearing. So Harvard's Evelyn Dudek from the Harvard Law School is saying about damn time, and celebrating that they finally are bringing people other than Facebook into this conversation, especially in light of the fact that the kids aren't on Facebook. Lawmakers have just zeroed in on Facebook and its chief. However, Google, which has faced its own wave of scrutiny on antitrust, privacy, and content issues, has testified at least 20 times over the past 4 years, including 4 times by CEO Sundar Pichai. Twitter, which is dwarfed by both Facebook and Google and their representative subsidiaries, Instagram and YouTube, in market cap and other user base, has testified on Capitol Hill 18 times. 5 of those featuring CEO Jack Dorsey. The frequency of Twitter's appearances is particularly noteworthy given that it has fewer monthly active users than TikTok, Snapchat, or Pinterest, which have appeared 0 times. By the way, TikTok just passed YouTube in average viewer time, just passed Facebook. They just passed 1 billion users. Twitter has 250 million monthly active users. It's 4 times bigger than Twitter. And Twitter has appeared 18 fucking times. TikTok, 0. What the fuck's going on?
So I've got a thought on this. I think Facebook was kind of viewed as helping Trump win the 2016 election with Brad Pascal and others, with working with the teams at Facebook. And so then they attacked Facebook, and then Trump targeted TikTok, and so maybe politically it wasn't, it was like siding with Trump, and now that's all worn off. And I think TikTok, as far as lobbyists, they're not going to stand a chance of being able to push back on Congress. So you're going to see them get attacked by Congress, and there's going to be some changes done to TikTok that won't be done to the big lobbyist of Google and Facebook under YouTube and
Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Facebook, knowing that TikTok's going to come before the Senate for a hearing, that Facebook is writing the questions. Here's some questions you might want to ask TikTok. Oh, Senator, I hear you have TikTok coming. Great. Yeah, we've been telling you to do that for a while now. Congratulations on finally sending that email. I'm sure it must have been incredibly strenuous to send that email to TikTok. Congratulations on figuring out how to send that email to them. Here's some questions you might want to ask them. We've provided you with a list of how many did we get? 50,000 questions ranked in order of importance. Go ahead and have a looky-loo and knock yourself out. And let's see what kind of party you can get rocking there with these questions that we kindly suggest. Just our simple suggestions. Just a few little questions that we thought you might want to ask our friends over there at TikTok.
Oh,
Goddamn
yeah, let's
well,
not
Facebook.
obviate the obvious here.
I think two perspectives for me is one is that Facebook had a reputation crisis. That's why everybody usually just takes face value because of what happened and what reputation they have. They are known for lying. The other one to me is not defending TikTok. They're just new company, right? They haven't been around. They're like what, 2 years old, 3 years old. So I guess it was long enough to be, to be in Congress so many times. Facebook has been around for a bit. So those are the quick things I see.
But I love the idea of Facebook asking the questions and sort of pointing the finger at TikTok, because that's where all of the information will come out. And then we'll get to the core of the real issue here, which again are these teenagers that are impressionable.
They just need to have Senate ask them about the Benadryl challenge. Tyler, if you just go down the list of the things that
Yeah,
TikTok
that's what
is.
they need to look into the destructive power and all those toxic trends that were perpetuated by that app, not by
Even bring in some principals from schools.
I don't doubt it. So it says Zuckerberg,
those videos are enough, I guess.
Zuckerberg, Dorsey, and Pichai have all individually testified more often than the entirety of Reddit, Pinterest, TikTok, and Snapchat combined. Yet while Facebook and Google executives have testified dozens of times, including several blockbuster side-by-side appearances by their CEOs, They're massive subsidiaries. Instagram and YouTube haven't as much. Instagram has never appeared, and while YouTube has testified at least 3 times, neither of its chiefs have ever appeared. It's not the first time lawmakers have tried to summon TikTok and Snapchat to the Capitol. A panel led by GOP tech critic Senator Josh Hawley demanded in 2019 that TikTok and Apple appear at the hearing about whether the companies posed national security risks due to their dealings with China. Both companies declined to appear. Lawmakers left empty seats for their executives at the witness table, a classic congressional move to voice displeasure. Efforts to get Snapchat to testify on Capitol Hill date back to at least 2014, when Jay Rockefeller, then the chairman of the Senate Commerce Committee, bashed the company for refusing to testify about a series of data breaches it had disclosed at the time. Though both companies have since gotten scrutiny in the form of congressional letters and briefings, there's been little to no talk of them testifying until now. On Tuesday,
And that's why I was saying follow the money. Who's been lobbying for them?
On Tuesday, TikTok's head of U.S. policy, Michael Beckerman, Google's vice president of government affairs and public policy, Leslie Miller, and Snapchat's vice president of global public policy, Jennifer Stout, will testify before Senate Commerce Consumer Protection Panel. When might we see some companies next time will tell? Okay.
Question.
Yes.
All this lobbying that Arian mentioned, right? So, which department is in charge of doing all these things in a tech company? Is it the legal firm the legal counsel
Government Affairs
or
Department.
so you need to have a government affairs department in your company to deal with all this crap?
You should. You don't have to, but you should.
Or can
You
we
know,
outsource to the lawyer?
no, it's not really a lawyer. It's a specialized role to do government lobbying.
Something like
No,
Justin or
Government
what? Like
affairs. No,
no.
Justin worked for the senators as a staffer. That's who the lobbyists oftentimes coordinate with.
Okay. And when do you know you need to hire such a person
As
in the
soon as you
company
have
for that?
enough, as soon as people start attacking you, and as soon as you have enough money, it's just
Enough
simple
money.
math. When you start making enough money, you need to start doing lobbying to protect your financial interests. It's like,
That's through
Cheryl, it's very
regulations,
similar
etc.
to at what point do you need to start buying security system for your house? Well, usually around maybe a house of about $50,000 or $100,000. Then you might want to consider a security system.
And insurance, right? I guess.
It's a form of
Yeah.
insurance in a way, in a big picture way. Yes.
It's a form of
Sh-
protection. You
yeah,
pay
Cheryl, it
both
might come in.
sides. You
Yeah,
keep
Cheryl, it
everyone
might come in.
happy so they don't come
Sorry.
after you.
yeah. No,
To
and
put it in,
Cheryl, there
That's
are
not
It might come
that's
in,
not the
Donna here.
only
It might come in
purpose.
two or three layers of
Now we're losing
sorry.
you.
to put it in perspective,
Okay.
Facebook had lobbyists like many years before they were even a publicly traded stock.
And medical device companies usually start looking at lobbyists like once they clear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, you have Cheryl. You have two levels of lobbyists. You'll have somebody in your let's say your company who
Mm-hmm.
will coordinate amongst the lobbyists. So you'll
Mm-hmm.
have like Coca-Cola has a person that's their global affairs, but global affairs is would be their lobbyist global affairs person. That person that when I knew them back when
Mm-hmm.
was located in Washington. So many of the companies will have that office in Washington. Why? Because they liaise with those people all the time and they
Mm-hmm.
need to be in closer proximity. That so
Mm-hmm.
so that person or their team. The bigger the company, you could have a team of people that will then work also with specific lobbyists and
Mm-hmm.
with PACs, meaning political action campaigns that you might be giving to,
Mm-hmm.
related to the different senators or the causes, et cetera, that you do. Normally, you don't want your lawyer doing it after you get
Mm-hmm.
it of any size because you want to always insulate your lawyer from the political stuff. They're there to advise you on the legalities of XYZ. But
Mm-hmm.
remember, there's no, if it's your lawyer, then you don't, that's a line of defense for the company. So if that's the person that's out with the senators and things all the time, you can't
Mm.
really say it's confidential. So the lawyer tends to be dealing with the confidential areas. They don't,
Mm.
whatever they say to their
Oh,
client, i.e.,
yes.
the CEO, et cetera, the
Well, wait,
board, you
actually,
can't
Donna,
mess with it.
I did these areas for both Viacom and Accenture. So
Okay,
it's,
great.
yeah, so the legal team does get involved but it depends. By the time you're that big, you've got legal teams that are huge, right? So we've got our government, as you noted, the government affairs teams, and there's multiple layers to this, right? You can either be, if you're a smaller company that can't afford your own either external lobbyists, or you're not big enough to hire, have a government affairs team. That's what they're called, is the government affairs team. You will be part of an industry group, right? So you might be part of like a
Mm.
Rotary Club or somebody that does this. I mean, they have industry groups that go lobby. Right now, you've got all the banks lobbying because they don't want to be, they need to get these privacy regulations changed. So you've got big industry groups for the banks. Plus, they'll have their own government affairs groups. So things that they don't necessarily go lobby and take out senators. Those would be the external lobbyists. But it's the
Mm-hmm.
pending legislation. We'll get it and we'll review it and we will comment on it. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully they'll take our comments. And that, or other industry groups. With Accenture, I was part of tech lobbying groups here in California. So
Mm-hmm.
there's multitudes of layers. It's not going to be like you're a mid-sized company with a small legal team and they're reaching out to senators. That's not necessarily how it works. But
Mm-hmm.
it's and as Tyler said, it's simply protecting yourself, right? These laws are going to affect you, so you want to have some say in them.
Mm.
Yeah. So I know the vice president of public policy for Asia Pac for Facebook. He's a guy based out of Singapore, an American guy called Simon Milner, and he's responsible for exactly the same thing, keeping Asian governments in the radar and lobbying in Asia. And there's a
Mm.
vice president for U.S. public policy based out of D.C. As well. So these guys are in Facebook. They're called VPs of public policy.
Mm. Thank you. Tyler, by the way, Alexandra is in the audience too. I think
Okay.
her hands are
Yes.
raised.
So
Thank you.
I was just gonna add a very small piece on that one. Is I think that someone, Jennifer, I think mentioned as well. It's not just to protect yourself as well, but also to get the policy that you like to have, especially the Wall Street and the banking. That's what they do when they want to get some kind of regulation to be repealed or something like that. So that's why everybody complains about sometimes rigging the system.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Next up from Bloomberg, China hints that its regulatory crackdown on tech may be ending. As its financial regulator says, he expects significant progress in regulation of fintech by year end. And that's an interesting move, by the way, for them to even say that.
That was short lived.
Uh, my own personal guess is that they understand they've scared away a whole lot of investors and startups and everything else, and they're now back trying to wave the white flag to let everyone know that
That's
the
right.
bombings have ended. So the next one is Video Amp, which offers audience and ad measurement tools across digital platforms, raises $275 million. And Twitter rolls out the ability for all Android and iOS users to host their Twitter Spaces. It was previously limited to people that had more than 600 followers. Okay, so that covers your big boring headlines for today. Now we get into the fun, juicy, crazy tweets.
Hey Tyler, I've
Yes?
got some news. This is Danish. I know we announced the X Prize finals yesterday. We have possibly bigger news to announce that I know I've told you about before,
Yep.
but couldn't share publicly.
Yeah,
So
you did hint.
as of
I
this
think you
morning,
even hinted this in the room at one point when this company's
I
name
did.
came up, like 2 months ago.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's correct. So we, as Resilient, have entered a strategic partnership with Reef Technology. For people that don't know and haven't been listening in these rooms, or even people that have, Reef actually is the ghost kitchen slash parking lots get converted into usable helpful community locations. Well, with Reef, Resilient is now bringing cloud clinics to all 5,000 locations, hopefully, in the next few years. So the idea is any parking lot in your city may have a clinic in there, and every doctor is available at every clinic because the doctors are on the screen. And as part of this partnership, there's more news that's going to be coming out, but it was in Fast Company this morning. We are actually partnering with them where they take on all the build out and everything like that, and then we provide care. And we're starting out in Miami, but we're coming to every city in America in the next few years. And so it's a huge partnership for us, and we're going to continue to build.
Amazing
That's
Congratulations.
news.
news.
Congrats.
That's awesome.
Congratulations.
I will
Wow.
Where's
say
the
up
horn,
front.
Tyler?
Air
I
horn.
will say up front also that
Woo!
I was going to say that my head of communications is listening, I think, so I have to be careful what I can tell you. But she's going to kill me. But I have to tell you guys that as part of this partnership, Reef, who again is backed by SoftBank, is investing in us, and so we're actually, and that's not public yet. So this is the first place that I've mentioned this out loud, and so we are excited about this long-term partnership. If people don't know, cloud kitchens and ghost kitchens are everywhere, and we're going to bring cloud clinics everywhere. I don't think they can be called ghost clinics. That would be a little bit complicated. But yeah, we're bringing cloud clinics everywhere, and it's going to be all over the country.
So how
And I think you'll get 10 million from A&A pretty soon with a sponsored trip to Tokyo.
That's right.
Woohoo!
That's right.
how much will you sell to Amazon for?
As much as they can pay us. No, at the end of the day, the beauty of this is, Amazon's a really good comparator because, what people don't realize is that distribution is is a modern problem. Right now, when you think about healthcare, no one has actually built out a distribution network or, distribution warehouses for care. And that's how we view ourselves because our doctors are all at home and they're using telehealth to come into a room, and we're using connected devices that stream, that otoscope that the doctor puts in your ear or the stethoscope they put on your chest. That information is actually using our technology streaming directly to the doctor remotely, so the doctor can be in every room at any time, right? And so the idea is that no matter which location you go to, because we get our doctors licensed, and Cheryl might not know this, but in the US, every doctor has to be licensed in every state that they practice in. And so if the doctor might see the first patient in Austin and the second patient in Miami and the third patient in New York, but if you're the patient and you're moving around, you never have to change doctors again. And this value proposition can only be delivered if we're in every city in America, right? And so that's why we're partnering with Reef to power that. And it's crazy the way that Reef builds it. And just so people know, Reef actually manufactures these locations in a factory, ships them on site, connects them to all the power, and then we walk in and start delivering care. And they can do that within months. And so our goal is, we want to get to a frequency of something like, one new location every week or something crazy like that. So the idea is we're just going to keep building these locations, and every doctor in our network will be available remotely at every location.
You let us
That's
know when
amazing. The
Apple starts
best partner
knocking
that you
at your
could
door,
have.
Dr. Danish.
Danish, how many
No, thank you
doctors are in
guys.
your network now?
So through our partnerships, our partners, so the way it works is we have our own doctors, and then we use partners to have doctors as well. Our partners have over 6,000 doctors already in our network. And so, to give you some context, if you think about your local large hospital system, they have 4,000 to 5,000 doctors. We're already a big health system. And that's what makes us crazy. It's because our doctors can be anywhere, right? So if you're a doctor out there and you're tired of being just a cog in the wheel, we're always looking for doctors that are like fascinated by technology, but more importantly, want to build a continuity of care and relationship with their patients. The hard part that's happened is no matter how hard you try, it's impossible to get into the doctor, and then it's hard to get into your doctor. So what if your doctor was available through all the different channels that you can get access to them on, or even in your neighborhood? That's sort of the whole point. Is the ultimate goal is that once someone becomes a resilient member, they choose a physician that is actually not based on their location, but based on their preferences. And then they love that doctor and they never have to change doctors again. Tyler
I
knows
would
that means
love
that
that.
Hey, wait,
Yeah,
Dr.
and
Danish, do you use like out here we use PAs and
we don't use
masters, and
PAs.
you don't use any of those? It's all
No,
doctors.
these are all MDs. And the whole idea here is the reason why people are using PAs and NPs, outside of the fact that PAs and NPs are great extenders of doctors, is because doctors need extenders because the systems are so stupid. If anybody knows a doctor in their life, them problems every day, you'd be surprised. It's not misinformation as much as people think it is. It's documentation. It's the fact that their patients can't get in to see them. It's that they're forced to not spend time with their patients. You know, everybody romanticizes the doctor's touch, but what we should be focusing on is the doctor's time. Our doctors spend 30 minutes with each patient and we're still making money, right? And so the idea is like, we just need a new business model and a better infrastructure.
Dr.
All
Danish.
of us, sorry, all of us want to talk about regulations and everything. I will promise you, no matter what the media tells you, technology is the answer. And that's actually what we're learning right now, is that the problem with our systems is that the infrastructure is built analog. Once you convert that analog system into a digital system, like we've seen in tech, right? You actually can bring abundance to the world. And that's what we're really excited about.
Dr.
You know,
Danish, is this across specialties or just primary care for now?
For now, primary care, yes. But yes, we have aspirations to have every doctor of every specialty in our network available at every location.
Because here's the thing, I would love it if I can access my breast center team in Newton Wellesley, for example, even while in Colorado. So I see use cases there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So do I.
Sharon, I was going to say the same thing. We when we were traveling in San Diego a couple weeks ago, my daughter that has congenital heart disease passed out actually, which was really scary because that's not very normal for her at all, and she's in a flurry of like cardiac appointments right now, doing different things to plan for her next surgery. But at any rate, my point is, I was able to text her cardiologist to sort of like, okay, look, do I, here's what's going on. What should we do? Or do I need to like haul her over to Rady Children's like right now to see a bunch of doctors that she's never seen before and go through the whole hospital thing and all of that? And we actually averted that because what would have the next step would have been to do that. But most people don't have the ability to just text message their primary care doctor or their specialist that they've had for many years where they have confidence in that communication. So I think, Dr. Donish, what you're doing is just you're going to save a lot of money through averted unnecessary
Exactly.
emergent care, and I
Exactly.
really appreciate that as someone who is a super user of the system.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. Just wanted to share that news with my family and, appreciate you guys continuing to support.
Keep moving that ball forward, brother. We love you.
very,
I'm
very
excited.
proud
I'm
of
excited.
you.
And I mean, let us know when you want partners and Kaiser at the table having conversations. Let's use our networks to get those conversations going and move this towards other
Yeah,
specialties.
and let's notify when the next fundraising happens a little early.
Yes, please.
We
All
get
right.
Friends and
You know what?
so
family.
we
We'll
could
let
get
you
our
know.
beaks wet on this next mega
Reg
round.
D.
It's coming. All
がん、
right.
頑張ってください。
Okay, so next up is now we're into the juicy tweets, and Katarina sent in this one from Neuroscience. It says how an enriched environment fires up our synapses. Post-genomic analysis of the regulation of synapses in a rodent hippocampus sheds new light on the interaction of proteins and lipids within the synaptic membrane. From University of Vienna. We usually enjoy a beautiful environment, socializing, a cozy apartment, good restaurants, a park. All this inspires us, says Robert Ahrens from the Institute of Analytical Chemistry of the University of Vienna and a former group leader of some agency you never heard of. Previous studies have already shown that such an enriched environment can sometimes have a positive effect on child development or even on the human ability to regenerate, for example, after a stroke. However, the reason for these observations was not yet clarified at the molecular level. Stimulating sensory perceptions are ultimately formed via the activity or regulation of synapses, for example, those connecting units between our neurons that transfer information from one nerve cell to another. To clarify the underlying molecular principles, the researchers offered the rodent their model organisms, an enriched environment based on plenty of room to move, a running wheel, and other toys, with the hope of post-genomic analysis and using state-of-the-art mass spectrometry and microscopy, as well as bioinformatics for data analysis. They investigated the regulation of synapses in the hippocampus of the rodents, more precisely the interaction of the proteins and especially lipids, aka fats, located in the synaptic membranes. 80% of the brain cells are only supporting cells. We have therefore focused on the synapses as central sites of signal transmission and isolated them, says neuroscientist Michael Kreutz. The team gathered qualitative information about the network of molecules regulated at synapses and examined their lipid metabolism, also under the influence of the enriched environment. The analysis revealed that 178 proteins and 20 lipids were significantly regulated depending on whether the rodent had spent time in an enriched environment or an uncomfortable one. What is their conclusion? If the information arrives at the synapse as a signal, so your environment affects your brain development, essentially, is the interesting conclusion from this. That it's actually healthier. You actually have a healthier brain if you are in a enriched environment. Now molecularly,
Like tech news around the world.
it's now proven. They got the facts. They have the mouse brain receipts.
You're not talking about my mouse brain,
The
right?
geek in me just left.
The-
I'm getting really worried about Cal. Is he degenerating now?
He's turning into a hairless.
He's still tuning in,
He's
though,
listening.
guys.
He's on the live stream. You're gonna summon the beast if you if you say his name 3 times. He's like Beetlejuice.
Hi, Cal, if you're listening.
Candyman, say it 5 times in the dark.
So Katerina sends in the next one from Universe Today that something out there really wants our attention. One object in space released 1,652 fast radio signals. According to a telescope in China, reported 1,652 fast radio bursts in 47 days coming from a single source in space.
This sounds like a Rent song gone
Katarina's in the
wrong.
audience
Maybe
if
it's
you want
Cal.
her up to sort of talk
Cal,
about.
is that you out there? The energetic phenomena known as fast radio burst, FRBs, are one of the greatest cosmic mysteries today. These mysterious flashes of light are visible in radio wave part of the spectrum and usually last only a few milliseconds before fading away forever.
That's interesting because time differs out there, so I wonder how long it took them to get that signal to us.
Since the first FRB was observed in 2007, astronomers have looked forward to the day when instruments of sufficient sensitivity would be able to detect them regularly. That day has arrived with the completion of the 500-meter Fast Radio Telescope, aka Tianyan, which is Mandarin for Eye of Heaven, or of sky. Eye in the sky is another way to say it, actually. Since it commenced operations, this observatory has vastly expanded the number of detected FRBs. In fact, according to research led by the National Astronomical Observatories of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, the observatory detected a total of 1,652 independent bursts from a single source in 47 days. The research, which recently appeared in the journal Science, was conducted by researchers from the Commercial Radio Astronomy Fast Survey Project, which includes researchers from Cornell, the Max Planck Institute in Germany, the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, and multiple universities in China, Australia, and the US. To break this phenomenon down, FBRs are highly energetic, producing a year's worth of solar output in the space of a few milliseconds. In rare cases, astronomers have found bursts that were repeating in nature, which has allowed them to conduct follow-up studies. While the origin of these bursts is still unknown, possible explanations range from hyper-magnetized neutron stars and black holes to cosmic strings left over from the Big Bang and even alien transmissions. This exotic explanation is especially appealing where repeating FRBs are concerned, as repetition lends itself to artificial explanations. This includes signal designated FRB 121102, which was originally detected in 2012 and is the first known repeater and the first well-localized FRB. Not only has this signal been traced to a dwarf galaxy 3 billion light years away, but it is repeatedly bursting at pretty regular intervals. Previous observations determined that it repeats on a 157-day cycle that consists of 67-day inactive phase, followed by a 90-day period where it would repeatedly emit intense radio flares. In recent years, Pei Wang and the many institutions participating in the FAST Telescope project have monitored FRB 121102s and recorded several repeating bursts, one that consisted of 20 pulses in one day and another where 12 bursts were observed in 2 hours. From these, Wang and his colleagues were able to refine estimates of the cycle, which they now place at 156.1 days. But when they examined the backend data obtained by the system during the commissioning phase, they noticed that the signal experienced a truly energetic period of activity during the 3 months running from August 29th to October 29th in 2019. The system detected no less than 1,652 independent bursts in a 60 hours spanning 47 days. While the rate of radio pulses varied throughout this time, a record 122 bursts occurred during the peak hour, the highest event rate ever observed from an FRB. Based on the detection burst, the researchers determined that they have a peak energy equivalence of 480 nonillion ergs at 1.25 gigahertz, below which the detection of bursts is suppressed. The total energy of this burst set already adds up to 3.8% of what is available from a magnetar, and no periodicity was found between 1 millisecond and 1,000 seconds, both of which severely constrains the possibility that FRB 121102 comes from an isolated compact object. They also determined the burst's energy distribution is bimodal in nature, meaning that they are distributed one of two ways, depending on the energy level. In other words, they found that weaker FRB pulses are more random, while strong ones occur with greater consistency. Moreover, the latest results also allowed the team to investigate the range of theoretical causes and narrow them down. Oh, we're almost done. Okay. For one, the lack of periodicity of this repeating FRB challenges the notion that it results from a single rotating compact disk, like a black hole or a neutron star. Second, let me make sure I understood that. The lack of periodicity of this repeating of the notion that it results from it challenges the notion that it's from a black hole or neutron star, which means this is leading them to conclude that it's alien intelligence.
It's aliens. It's aliens.
Since
No, it's Superman's home, Krypton.
Second, the high burst rate disfavors high energy or contrived mechanisms, which cast doubt on theories of alien agency. But most of all, they found that the high cadence of these bursts will facilitate future statistical studies. Basically, they anticipate the astronomers will be able to conduct investigations into the periodic nature of these bursts, with searches lasting between 1 millisecond and 1,000 seconds. What's more, they anticipate that the telescope will play a vital role as the world's largest antenna. Its sensitivity proves to be conducive to revealing intricacies of cosmic transients, including FRBs. In more recent news, the project has reported the discovery of 6 new FRBs, including a repeater that is similar to 121102. These and other radio sources are cataloged on their website.
It's
Interesting. I
title.
want to
It's
know. Inquiring minds want to know, are they intellectual life or life looking for resources? Do I put up my hand for a handshake or do I mount up?
when
Well,
will
they
we
could
be
be
alive
both,
when they
right?
show up? When we will even be alive when they show up, right?
Well, the thing is,
Exactly that part.
how long ago were these FBRs sent out, right?
300
If we're
million
just
years ago.
exactly, so they're probably not around.
We want to look for things like prime number sequences, right? Like that's what we're sending out. If we start seeing signs of intelligent life, that'll be our sign.
But my point is like, go ahead.
The time difference, yeah. And
could we
okay.
please find intelligent life on Earth first?
Well, I mean, some of it's sitting in
That's
the
a real
sun, I would say.
request.
The reality is though that by the time someone finds what we're sending out, how many millions of years in the future will that be? And we will have most probably destroyed ourselves or the Earth by that point anyway. So
We'll be living on Mars, though, right?
Okay, next up, we've got Evan sent this one in about a male infertility cure. Scientists create new sperm cells using monkey stem cells. The team used embryonic stem cells collected from a rhesus macaque to produce immature I sperm. love the work macaque. To produce immature sperm cells. So using stem cells from monkeys.
Planet of the Apes, baby.
This is how you get Planet of the Apes.
Oh God.
The next one. one. No, the stem cells will take on whatever genome it's attached to, right? It's new cells, baby cells that'll take on the memory cells of whatever it's attached to. So we won't be creating apes at all. The next one is from Dennis. Sent this one in from the BBC. The headline says, God and Robots. Will AI transform religion? Robot priests can recite prayers, perform funerals, and even comfort those experiencing a spiritual crisis.
And they won't commit sexual assaults and crimes.
Yes, good build, Chris.
I think they tried this during the pandemic, right, where priests were hearing confessions over the web.
Experts say major global faiths are discussing their relationship with AI, and some are starting to incorporate this technology into their worship. Robot priests can recite prayers, deliver sermons, and even comfort those experiencing spiritual loss. BBC Global Religion reporter Sophia Batiza has taken a look at whether AI's relationship with religion is just a gimmick or whether it can truly transform how people experience faith. And it's a video, so I just tweeted that out. Thank you, Dennis. Lewis?
There is no need to go to a priest, though. If you read the New Testament, there's only one mediator between man and God, and that is the man Christ Jesus. So you can get the fast path, like much faster than AI. You can just shoot it up yourself.
And then Lewis
Amen.
Sends in this one from Kotaku. The headline says that Sony has a new patent which lets viewers and players of video games vote and pay to boot other players from the game. The PlayStation maker, Sony, has been trying to take esports more seriously lately, and they patented a way for players to vote or pay to boot other players from the game. I kind of like that.
Well, this has been available in Battlefield for quite some while, that you actually could vote out other players.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But the fact that you could pay to boot another player is there anything else written about that in there, or that's it? Just that it's the idea of it, or that it's actually happening?
I kind of like that, the idea that I could harass you to pay to boot me out. Maybe I get a cut of that.
Can you? What are you talking about, Tyler? I'm just going to air this right now, dude.
You're clipping that.
I have it under good information
Okay.
that people have paid to get me off the stage.
Yep.
And Tyler, being the guy he is, said, "This is what they offered me. Can you offer me more?" And I did, and that's why I'm here.
But the thing is, this actually brings something else to the table. This would pay to win gets a totally new dimension.
Exactly.
We could
boot
do
off the best players, right?
Well, we could do a whole Squid Game like scenario where people get kicked out, and then that adds money to the pot.
They get shot.
Eliminated.
That up.
Eliminated. The next one's from P.T. Yoder from NBC News. NBC News is one of America's 3 biggest news networks. And the headline from NBC today says, China-linked disinformation campaign blames COVID on what? What is China blaming COVID on now?
Messi.
Disinformation.
Just blame it on Messi.
That the world wanted to punish them.
It's a one-word answer.
American
Americans
soldiers.
not wearing mask.
One-word answer.
Et.
America.
Let's go for the friendliest country in the world, Canada.
Virus.
Bats.
Yeah, that's what I said.
The correct answer is lobsters.
What?
Flying
Wait a minute,
lobsters.
what?
Next
Yeah,
we will have
flying lobsters
pigs.
that bit people.
China-linked disinformation campaign blames COVID on Maine lobsters. The University of Oxford found evidence that pro-China social media accounts are pushing a new thread of propaganda related to the origins of the pandemic. In mid-September, Marcel Schliebs, a disinformation researcher at the University of Oxford, who had been tracking messaging that Chinese diplomats and state media spread on Twitter for 18 months, spotted the emergence of a surprising coronavirus origin theory. Someone named Jia Liu, the Chinese consul general in Kolkata, India, tweeted an unfounded claim that COVID-19 could have been imported to China from the U.S. through a batch of Maine lobsters shipped to a seafood market in Wuhan in November 2019. It marks the latest in a series of theories that have been pushed by pro-China accounts since the start of the pandemic. With some further digging, Schliebs from Oxford uncovered a network of more than 550 Twitter accounts, which he shared with NBC News, spreading a nearly identical message translated into multiple languages, including English, Spanish, French, Polish, Korean, and even Latin, at similar times each day between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. China Standard Time. Some of the accounts were, quote-unquote, unsophisticated sock puppets with very few or zero followers, Schliebs said, while others appeared to be accounts that were once authentic but had been hijacked and repurposed to spread disinformation. Attribution is really difficult, said Schliebs, a postdoctoral researcher of computational propaganda at Oxford's Program of Democracy and Technology. But we can see there's a coordinated effort, and that it's a pro-Chinese narrative. Articles in Chinese media shared on social networks have repeatedly suggested that COVID-19 may have originated from frozen food imports. The same diplomat Schliebs noted pushed the Maine lobster theory last month had already tweeted in December about the theory that COVID could have arrived in Wuhan from elsewhere via the cold chain, quote-unquote cold chain, and called for further investigation into the baseless claim that the U.S. military was involved in spreading the virus. Here's a quote. This is the third or fourth major different redirection Chinese officials have gone in to try and somehow pin the COVID outbreak on the U.S. Brett Schaefer, the head of information manipulation team at the Alliance for Security Democracy, part of a nonprofit German Marshall Fund of the United States, said about the diplomats spreading the messaging bolstering by inauthentic accounts. It looks crude and not sophisticated when you look at the individual accounts, but these kinds of networks are designed to try and get topics to trend on social media. Whether or not anyone is buying into lobster or Fort Detrick being the source of COVID, it's at least having the effect of muddying the truth and confusing people, he said. And Fort Detrick in Maryland is the home of the U.S. Biological Defense Program, which is why it's often cited as China as the original source of COVID. Schliebs said he shared with Twitter a spreadsheet of the accounts that appeared to be behaving inauthentically. The social media platform said it reviewed the accounts and suspended them under its platform manipulation and spam policy. Our top priority is keeping people safe, and we remain vigilant about coordinated activity on our service, Twitter spokesperson Marco Bilelio said. Using both technology and human review, we proactively and routinely tackle attempts at platform manipulation and mitigate them at scale by actioning millions of accounts each week for violating our policies in this area. Because of how quickly Schlieb's team identified the network, the real-world impact was likely small, he said. We alerted Twitter about the network, and they quickly suspended it just as it was starting to gain traction when the network was in its growth phase. Maine's lobster industry has been caught in the crossfire of U.S.-China trade relations for years. Oh, it gets more interesting. According to U.S. Census Bureau data, American live lobster exports to China, a major buyer of seafood, plummeted by more than 40% in 2019 after China imposed heavy tariffs on U.S. lobsters during Trump's trade war with China. U.S. lobster exports to China rebounded in 2020 as China eased restrictions on the industry, but some experts are concerned about the possibility of future seafood sanctions from China. In November, China restricted the import of Australian lobsters amongst long diplomatic and trade dispute. It also informally restricted the import of Norwegian salmon after a Nobel Prize was awarded to a Chinese activist. And for those who don't know, and this article should have said in that paragraph, that China restricted the import of Australian lobsters, and it says amid a months-long diplomatic and trade dispute, which, for those who want additional context, it was because Australia suggested that there be an investigation into the origins of COVID. And so China banned all Australian lobsters and wine and cheese and all kinds of things in retaliation. So economically punishing Australia for suggesting there needs to be an investigation into the origins of COVID. Similarly, Norwegian salmon was banned in coming to China because the Nobel Prize was awarded to a Chinese activist. By the way, Norway only gives out 2 of the prizes. The rest come from Sweden. And the Nobel Prize is from Sweden. Alfred Nobel was a Swede who created this really clever system for giving away the prizes, and he chose the different agencies and groups that would give out the different prizes, and 1 or 2 of them happened to be in Norway because they were better than the best options in Sweden at the time, which this is 100 and 200 years ago or whatever. Some articles pointing the finger at Maine lobsters link to a World Health Organization report published in March that said that COVID can survive in frozen and refrigerated products and packaging for a long time, which provides a scientific basis for the possibility that such imports could transmit the virus. Public health organizations from around the world have stated that certainty that imported food is not the cause of COVID-19, says Tom Adams, owner of Maine Coast, a Maine lobster wholesaler supplier, blah, blah, blah. China's view. Kai Yan, a spokesperson for the Chinese embassy in the UK, said China was opposed to the fabrication and spread of disinformation. China is the biggest victim of disinformation, and the perpetrators are some politicians and media outlets eager for China bashing in the US and a few other Western countries, Yan said. Yan added that China urges all members of the international community to work together in opposing and resisting such a disinformation, which will inevitably disrupt global cooperation in fighting the pandemic. Despite the swift identification and suspension of the accounts, the same theory is still spreading on Twitter, Schleibs said. We slowed it down significantly, but we still see some coordinated effort to spread the message, Schleibs said. It seems like accounts are being set up now to replace the ones taken down in response to our investigation. So it seems that China is trying to spread more disinformation, despite the Chinese ambassador in the UK saying that people shouldn't do that.
And now they're employing Oxford to help them with that.
Oh, speak of the devil.
Yeah, I did hear you. You did do the bat call.
I knew once Oxford got mentioned, you'd
I
be
think
here,
it was
Tom.
No. It was the funny thing is, it is a bat call because I'm listening in the background and I'm going, this Tyler man, he's tempting me in. And then I was almost going to come in when Cheryl was bashing the U.S. again, or bashing U.S. leaders. So I was almost going to come in there, but that didn't quite do it. And then there were 2 other. Oh, Wet My Beak did it. Danish, is he there? Congratulations. That is a big deal.
Yeah.
What he's done, what Dr. Danish has done,
Yeah.
that's consumerization of medical, getting it into the parking lots, and this is where all the retailers are going. And he's just in the right space. I mean, that Wet My Beak there was the other bat call.
Wet
But the
your
number
beak.
one was any trashing of the U.S. I like to come and defend U.S. leadership. I know it's hard right now. I know with the SPACs that everyone's
the
making
only
money
way
on.
you can defend Cal is to run for presidency.
No, but it's not about a single person. The American thing is a system. I think somebody
Yeah,
said it.
we will
John
all
said it.
support you.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
said it.
yeah,
No, no,
Ron.
no, 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 no. That's the flaw of the understanding of the U.S. system. It is actually about removing power. It's the whole system is
Mhm.
about, and which is not what the Eastern system is about. The Eastern system is very, very different, and I've worked
The
in both.
president,
So
yeah,
I
the
have to come
president
in
should
and
be
say that
serving us all.
but when they don't, they eventually go, right. Eventually they go, but that doesn't happen in Eastern systems, right. And
True.
so
That's
yeah,
overgeneralized.
yeah, but you did it. Sorry, Cheryl, but you did it. You said, like, you were asking Socratic questions about U.S. leadership and saying, what are your leadership, what's that, is it also flawed, I
No, no, no.
so
I
we got to
was
balance it
asking
out. We
Tyler
got to
if there are
balance it out.
talents, and they said no.
Of course the U.S. has got talent. That's such a dumb question. Of course it's got
Yeah,
the
but
smartest people
Tyler,
in the world.
everyone in the room said no, Cal. So that's why I
No,
say
no, no, no,
how
no, no, no. There's
presidency.
talent. They're just
People weren't
not
saying.
attracted to work in politics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what he said,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, but they don't need to. The system polices itself eventually, right? And it's flawed. It's got its challenges, but so compare the system to a single person leader system. But
So I
anyway, that's
asked.
not the one. It
Yeah.
was a
So
bad call though, Tyler.
Okay, so we've got more interesting headlines to get through here. And I have the article from Danish that he shared with all of us in our DMs. But this the latest thing in Doctor's Office. This is an article in Fast Company. He failed to mention there's a really cool article in Fast Company about this new partnership with his company,
You mentioned it.
Resilient Health and Reef Technology. And for those he didn't do the greatest job of hyping it, because Reef, those of you who join us every day will recall the name Reef because there was a headline we read maybe 2 or 3 months ago, about 3, that Reef was partnering with Wendy's to bring Wendy's into these really cool trailers that could then be put in parking lots all over the US very easily. And at that time, 3 months ago, Donish said, well, I know a thing about this because we're actually working with Reef. So, and that's when I said, you hinted about this a long time ago. And the idea, but he
It
couldn't.
might have been back channel. It might have been back channel.
No, I remember him saying it in the room.
No, you actually said it in the room. I remember it as well. Another question, Tyler, you that are available or in part of the Swedish startup scene, we have Kry in Sweden,
Yes.
where we actually have doctors over the phone and video calls. Is that the next step for you guys, or is that redundant
You mean for
for the
Donish?
American
He's
market?
not on stage anymore. But
Danish is
Oh,
not on
sorry.
stage here, but what I see him doing, just, and this is a comment on the overall space, is the idea that you can get primary doctors wherever consumers hang out, right? Which is a whole different like mindset, because there's like a doctor's office, except now, and he's effectively giving access to continuation of care with the doctor in the US, the nuances of different states, etc. But here in the national health system in the UK, we need that, right? I mean, that we have people always romanticize the UK national health system, and there's a nice Twitter flow that I've got Danish involved in, and some of the guys that here in Oxford who are investing in that same space, working with the NHS, is that the challenge is the doctor's office is something different from like going to the pharmacy, or going to not even pharmacy, but just going to like a toy store or something. It's because it's specialist, it's different, or and he breaks that orthodoxy with the parking lot. And that was what got me with this deal he's done. And the whole sense is that you break it. It's a parking lot, but you get the full service, right? You get even better service. And eventually that just goes into, Target, into Best Buy. It doesn't matter. It's where the consumer is. And that's what I love about what he's doing. It's just, what that space is so inspiring. And we're so lucky in tech news to have Danish actually in the forefront of that. So I think that was one of my back calls here. It's so good.
I think the prettiest thing about his entire program is the continuity of care, Cal. The fact that you can
Yes,
keep
yes.
the one doctor that you did your research on, that you enjoy, that understands you. That to me is the crux of what makes his program different than any other.
Yeah, it's the relationship. And these NHS guys, one of the challenges even here in the UK, where they have, free primary care in a sense, people are wait. There's a big issue actually. There's a couple of headlines 2 or 3 weeks ago. I know Tyler, you probably covered it. It's like this whole thing about the government forcing GPs to go back to get face-to-face appointments, right? That's a big deal now because all the people are uprising and older people and just generally people want to see their doctors. They're not getting appointments, like physical appointments, and so they're having to. And some of them have. It's a bit hit and miss. Some of them have have online services put on, etc. But was it Sharon? I think yeah. To let me just see who's yeah Sharon.
Yep,
Yeah,
it was
the
me.
point. Yeah. The point you make is absolutely. It's not happening here in the UK at all. Like even your own doctor, I rarely see my own doctor, my primary health doctor. I see a locum, I see a random person, I see an online service. And so, and DJ Teflon is clapping that. You probably found the same, right? So
Yep.
in this system here, that doesn't exist. So that's one to solve because that relationship gives you so much more confidence. You believe your doctor. If there's misinformation out there, then the person you trust will give you the right information. But at the moment, if there are 5 different people you're seeing, even if you do have it for free, it doesn't help. So yeah, he's solving that, and that's so cool.
And then by being in the parking lots, right, he can do things that you can't. Show up at a big employer, set 3 or 4 of those trailers up, and do, a healthcare week where or do drives, do campaigns where you just go knock out a company in a lunchtime, or hey, go take 30 minutes and go do a primary care visit, and that just makes your life so much easier and without friction. And I
Well,
think that's what the healthcare system needs is the reduction of friction.
my husband is a primary care physician. This has actually been really interesting watching his practice grow. But like Dr. Danish's practice. But what's interesting, I think, honestly, is the mobile care has had fewer complaints in wait times, right? Because doctors habitually run late because they double schedule. So I think what's and triple schedule, they don't control their scheduling. Some other person usually controls the scheduling. So there's usually long delays. But if you're waiting at home or somewhere else, it's actually much easier because you can multitask rather than waiting in a waiting room. But the one thing I'd love to see with mobile care is the way that our system works out. We don't have a system that provides equal access of medical care in the US to different people. So like my family came from a country in South America and there's a ton of doctors in there and they will pay if you get into medical school, they pay for your medical school. You don't have any payments, but then you have to spend a period of time wherever they send you, right? So they go to points of need. That isn't really an option here in the U.S. It is for teachers, but is not for medical professionals. And one of the biggest problems is you have mobile clinics, but in the rural areas, and they're like 3 days of mobile clinics where literally everybody, for the first time in years, gets to see every doctor they need to have. So what would be great is if they had access, and I know that his is more concierge care, which is very expensive, but it would be nice if there were actually like pro bono days every month or something where the clinics were in areas that don't traditionally have good access or reliable access to medical care, and then they're able to go and see patients who don't have, like, the hospitals can't afford to stay open, so they don't have anybody around, so they can actually see people who are in need of, like, definitely preventative care, but often it rises to interventional care simply because there's just not the access. So if he's doing something with mobile care, that would be, I think, an area where he could ideally get some government funding for. But I mean, that is the area of greatest need, because honestly, the people who can afford the what do you call it, the concierge care are not suffering from lack of medical care. It is the people who don't have insurance or have only intervention insurance, like catastrophic insurance. Those are the ones that are actually suffering from lack of medical care and could use something like this a lot more. But that's just, I don't run his business, so that's just my thought.
Okay, here we go. We got a whole bunch of headlines. Craig Nielsen sends in this one that Russia aims to replace the U.S. dollar reserves with digital assets in the long term. Russia's Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs doesn't exclude replacing the U.S. dollar in the country's international reserves with some digital assets. Like what? Also digital
Oh, I
currencies.
sent this article.
Yeah.
The Russian currency thing. Yeah, I sent that one in, I think a couple of days ago. That yeah, they're looking at replacing the dollar reserve is their big driver. So they're looking at replacing it with the E1 or E renminbi. When I've seen different
E-renminbi, yeah.
articles called. Yeah. But so they're looking at replacing it with that, and then with a basket of other digital assets, not just currency. So that could actually be a bunch of different things that aren't necessarily other countries' currencies. I don't know Russian law, so I have no idea if like that wouldn't be possible in the U.S. You can't do that, but that would be really interesting to see. I know that they're doing something. I think they're adding back gold reserves, but mostly I think it's just a slap at the U.S. to say, we're going to put Chinese currency in here instead of yours because we don't like you.
Yeah.
Was it Joe Pena? Didn't he make a statement saying that Bitcoin was? He makes a claim that Bitcoin was actually founded by Russia. Did you
I
guys?
mean,
Did any of you hear that?
yeah, the thing is, so nobody knows who Satoshi is, but we do know that, a lot of the team of Bitcoiners, especially the ones who ended up working on Ethereum, like, Vitalik Buterin and Vladimir, what the hell was his last name? I can't remember.
Buterin?
I mean, yeah, there's a big chunk of people who are from Russia, or they're, like they weren't in Russia when they developed it, but there are people from there, but it's not Russian.
How do we find that out? I mean, like what do we have to do to find out who made the
It's
original code?
All right,
it's
No,
fun fact,
that's the big
guys.
secret.
We're gonna go down this rabbit hole just a little bit. So I don't know, 2012, 2013. I was one of those a-holes that got figured out Dorian Nakamoto's info and got his phone number and sleuthed his email. I think it still might be Dorian.
No,
I,
no,
I don't think it
no,
is.
He has
no,
this very aloof nature, but if you look at his email, if you Google his email address, shsprung@hotmail.com, you will see a history of conversations that don't talk about a person who's aloof. He's talking about his precision rifles. He's talking about specializing in making his Glock and building his own Glocks from receivers. This is not a person that's, I like to take my grandma down to Little Tokyo and take the train and have lunch. He's playing everybody. This is a Kaiser Soze.
no, I don't think so. Respectfully, I don't think so. This is
I'll
like
I'll
there's
I'll
a lot
But
DM
of
the
now
receipts
now
in
there's
the
I
a
back
want it
lot
to
channel.
be.
there's a lot of
I'll
Now I
DM the
want it to
receipts
be.
on the back channel. You'll see the receipts shortly.
No, wait. There's a lot of suspicion of who they are. This is the big secret: is who is or who are, because it could be many people. Satoshi Nakamoto. There's a reason. There's actually a whole documentary on who they most likely suspect to be part of this group. It's somebody part of this group of cypherpunks that were computer scientists and gamers and people who are generally speaking anti-authoritarian, a lot of it for various reasons. It's most likely this one guy who actually died, unfortunately, but it doesn't even really matter. The thing is that it's kind of this amazing thing that works on its own without a founder. So it's a pretty cool thing. The paper is amazing. You should read it. It's like 8 pages, the original Bitcoin paper.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Um,
talking
but
about. The
there is
original Satoshi paper. The
but
only
there is
one
a
anyone
guy.
should read.
There is a guy.
Okay, there's a blockchain room
Wait,
coming up in 18
okay.
minutes. We can carry
Oh,
on the
crazy!
discussion there.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Yeah,
there's
let's move
a
on.
there's an Australian guy who is a total asshat who claims to be Satoshi and somehow won that claim, so that he actually sues people who claim to be the creator, or Satoshi or something like that, or even use or even reference the original Bitcoin paper. I think that's right. They if you reference that original Bitcoin white paper or something like that, he owns the rights to it. It's some whatever. It's a guy who likes to sue people, and this is his big, jolly thing. Nobody thinks he's actually involved in this, but this is his big giant claim, mostly because he won
Craig
some.
Wright?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. You
Yeah.
know the guy I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
Craig, yeah.
I
Yeah,
think it's Craig Wright.
yeah, that guy. What an idiot. But yeah, that guy. So if you want to claim that you are the Satoshi, or that you know who it is, and it's not Craig Wright, then he's going to sue you because he apparently has zero other things to do in his life. It's a little bit for him.
We don't, it's not known who Satoshi is individually, there's a lot of evidence pointing to the fact that they're from the UK. I'll leave it at that. So the next article, we have so many to choose from here, is, we covered the Russia one. Thank you, Craig, for that one. Indeed, Russia's trying to get off of the dollar and break up the dollar hegemon. They're saying it out loud. Their foreign affairs minister, Alexander Pankey, saying exactly that. It's possible to replace the US dollar with other currencies, both national and regional, as well as some digital assets in the long term. Their actions have made it abundantly clear that they would like to do that. They sell all of their natural gas to Europe in petrodollars and petro euros rather. So China and Russia are coordinating to try and get the world off the US dollar, and China, of course, is going to try and push the digital yuan, which they're really going to try and push at the Beijing Olympics, which is why yesterday we learned in headlines that they're forcing McDonald's and all the other companies in Beijing to use the currency, so that when all the foreigners arrive in Beijing, they're going to have these wallets with their digital currency, and then yada, yada, yada. And anyway, so the next article is from Nerdstrom in the audience, and then this one from The Verge, that Google will now make it easier to separate your work and personal life on Android, where you'll have two different profiles. And when you're on the job, it's almost like having two different phones in your pocket, but in one phone, and you'll have your personal profile and your work profile. So you can kind of jump between the two profiles depending on if you're at work or not. Kind of a genius idea, I think. The next one is from Safe in the audience, sends in this one from Reuters, that the United States holds 3 tests to advance hypersonic weapon programs. Pentagon says the U.S. Navy and Army tested hypersonic weapon component prototypes on Wednesday, the Pentagon said, calling the 3 tests successful. The next one's from Neta, that China's shameless Squid Game ripoff, streaming giant Youku in China, kind of the Netflix of China, is accused of copying Netflix hit game Squid Game. They have this magically nearly identical show called Squid Victory. And the show features large-scale kids games and near-identical promo posters. The logos are nearly identical, except of being in Korean, they're in Chinese.
No shame. No shame.
Squid victory.
Squid Victory.
There's quite a few. I think there's another one called Alice in Borderland. There's a few spin-offs.
They figured
Are the
the
knockoffs
social
doing well?
media. They figured social media is doing it. Why don't we go in the film market as well?
Are the knockoffs doing well? Do you know, DJ, or anyone? Yeah, probably.
David.
I think we'll find out during Halloween when the kids are wearing those
Yeah.
outfits.
Well, they're already wearing them today in Seoul, Korea, because they're protesting and they're saying that they feel all too empathetic to the show. That they are.
You saw the video version?
I have the video version. I'm going to tweet it out right now. It's in my. Oh, here it is. There it goes. Tweet it out, and now you can watch the video of these protesters in Seoul, Korea, dressed up like Squid Gamers. Thousands of union workers demand better labor rights in Seoul, dressed in costumes inspired by the series Squid Game. They say they identified with the characters in the dystopian Netflix blockbuster. Next up is from David Crace from WDSU. Student accused of TikTok challenge assault faces 10 years in prison. St. Tammany Parish District Attorney Warren Montgomery announced Tuesday that Lariana Jackson, 18 years old, of Covington, was charged with felony second-degree battery? Second-degree what? Here we go. There it is. A Covington High School student is facing felony charge and 10 years in prison for an alleged TikTok challenge resulting in the assault of a disabled teacher.
Oh, that's the one. That video was brutal.
St. Tammany Parish District Attorney Warren Montgomery announced Tuesday that Lariana Jackson, 18, of Covington, was charged with felony second-degree battery and cruelty to the infirmed. So it's a disabled teacher. And she committed felony second-degree battery as part of a TikTok challenge. This harmless little app. Never mind this TikTok app. Let's go back to Facebook and how there was a document that somebody found that where they did a survey. It's all Facebook is the one, right?
Yeah, let's talk about how great TikTok is with schools.
Let's do a New York Times article. Taylor Lorenz, congratulations on your article yesterday, highlighting how TikTok is so wonderful with the schools. That was such a beautiful piece. I'm sure.
I want to follow up now.
I'm sure
Let's see what Taylor has to say
I'm sure
now.
the disabled teacher who was the victim of felony battery is absolutely loving these TikTok challenges called Slap a Teacher. Jackson was arrested on October 6th by the Covington Police Department for felony battery of a school teacher. Jackson faces up to 10 years and will be arraigned by 22nd Judicial District Court Judge Richard Swartz on December 8th at 9 a.m., according to Montgomery. The Covington Police Department has made an arrest in connection with an altercation that happened between a disabled teacher and an 18-year-old high school student. Police said student assaulted the teacher after the dismissal bell rang. According to the police, the 18-year-old student, Alariana Jackson, attacked the disabled 64-year-old teacher in what they believe was a connection with a TikTok challenge. Due to injuries sustained by the attack, the teacher had to seek medical attention at an area hospital. According to the police, Jackson was arrested and faces charges of suspicion of battery of a school teacher, which is a felony. Jackson was taken to jail and is awaiting prosecution. Officers on the scene were also provided with a video that captured the entire incident. In the video, well, yeah, she even made the video herself. That's the whole point of the challenge.
Are kids getting meaner? Is this me? Like, I don't remember anybody, even in like the worst
They
schools, like
are. They
anybody
are.
hitting a teacher, or like that was just not something you did. Is this, or am I just like, is this me being old? I
It's
could just.
because it's
I
digital
and
opium in the
to
form
be
of a light.
clear, she did not open face hit this disabled teacher. She punched her repeatedly while other students sat there and watched. I don't understand what's going on with society. I should hope if my children saw that they not only stop it, but they handle that girl themselves. This is just unacceptable behavior. And if TikTok is perpetuating this, yeah, I'm just upset that we're targeting something as like Instagram rather than talking to this particular situation, which is endemic at this point. It's horrible and it's incessant. And we have to speak to what's going on psychologically because our children clearly don't understand the ramifications and they're becoming less humane over time. This is scary.
You're
Parents
amazing, Sharon.
parents have to teach the
Like, thanks
children.
for saying that. Well said.
The article says um, officers said they learned that the attack may have been prompted by a viral social media application known as TikTok. Evidently, users on the app have deemed it a challenge to damage school property and attack teachers, according to the police. There we
I
go.
mean, teachers have stabbed and stuff. This is just, I just cannot imagine one of my kids actually like hitting anyone, much less a teacher. Like it just, I can't even imagine in the schools. When I was a kid, I mean, there were kids who were, like I went to a couple of schools that were not awesome schools, but I still can't imagine that kind of behavior against teachers or adults, or it just seems like I don't know. Do they not know what? It can't be that they know what they're doing. But remember, like that Slender Man attack thing. Those girls that stabbed one of their friends because they thought that it would appease Slender Man. Like that's the kind of stuff. And it's not like we didn't have urban legends or anything like that. It's just that going to that place of saying, "Oh, well, let's just stab our friend," like that. I don't like something has changed
Well,
for sure.
here's the question I have.
Significantly.
Yeah, the question I have, like, that comes to my head, like, is it that we have less um, quality parenting? One, is it less quality parenting, or is it that um, quality parenting is being undone by something else that is new, right? If we feel it's different, so that's my kind of question. I don't know what it is, and
Yeah.
both of the things are not
Less
good. I
parental
mean,
oversight for sure.
Well,
So you,
How is that happening? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, Well, part I of honestly, as a parent, I can tell you that it's a lot more difficult to oversee things now than it was for my parents when I have to worry about what
I
apps are on
agree.
my kid's phone. When I specifically tell them they're not allowed to use certain things, and they say, well, but my friends are using it, and that's not fair. And how am I supposed to talk with them? And then it becomes like a whole struggle of, okay, now I have to monitor. I have to monitor all of these apps. I have to monitor all of the messaging. I have to monitor. So now I've taken on a whole other role of just, I know he's in his room and he's reading a book. Well, he could be in his room and he could be on a multitude of, he could be on his Oculus or his phone or his Xbox, and who's he talking with, and it's overwhelming as a parent, really. And then if you
Yeah,
take everything away, like you're creating a person then who will rebel, when they're older, because you've taken away all of these things, and maybe go to the other extreme. So it's a very delicate balance between all of these things. I mean,
yeah.
So
what I'm
I just
saying
want to
is
say
just
that a
we.
lot of this is happening not because of the parents, but because the availability of social media. And a lot of these actions happen because what they call clout. The teenagers and children are doing it for attention. You get a different type of attention off social media than your parents would give you. Everybody wants to be popular now. The culture has changed. And so there's not like some of these acts are happening. And I know a rapper in America that went and robbed a bank, then rapped about it and created a video. And he made money, and you get popular off acts like that. And it's becoming normalized popularity.
That's a
Yeah,
great point, Gabby.
So
But what does
there's a
that
guy.
say about us as a society where we reward that sort of behavior with the popularity they're seeking, right?
All right, I'm
There's
So
gonna get deep. I'll get deep. I am that class clown. You hear it every day, Tyler. I'm sorry, I get annoying, but it starts at home. Okay, I know where my issues are. It starts with attachment. My mom had to bust her butt. I was raised by my grandmother. She tried their best, but I was lacking that positive feedback that I needed, and so I sought the attention of my peers. I sought the attention of the teachers. It becomes this unhealthy thing you seek. And unfortunately, I admit to it. I'm a class clown, but it extends further into more nefarious things because all you're seeking is that attention. And so, how do we mitigate that? It's really getting involved with the kids early on in their lives, making sure they have safe attachments with their parents, that they know that it's okay for you to away for a little bit, that you're coming back. For me, it was that anxiety. Like, my mom would leave before I woke up. I'd see her right as I'm going to bed. So
but
there's a big gap. And I
There
apologize
it
to bring
I
my
is.
mean,
own stuff
no.
into
I
it.
mean, but here's the thing.
that's
Though. I don't think
huge.
parenting has actually changed that much. I mean, we definitely have. It's more like the parenting of the poor has extended to everyone, right? Which is the two parent work thing. There isn't a person at home. Everybody is working. There isn't even women working at home, which is the work that they used to do, which was at home. But aside from that, I mean, I was raised by a single mother who was a professional, who's never there. And I was like, like I knew how to open my own house and get home when I was 3. I mean, I remember being 4 and being on a plane by myself, but I did not do any of that kind of stuff. I think it's a combination, right? But part of it is attention, but part of it is there's something. And I remember somebody pointing out that this happened. Remember that show Jersey Shore that happened, where it was like a bunch of drunk idiots who were filmed on MTV, and something changed in that, where there was a girl got slapped and on that show, and it like made her more popular, and it made that show more popular. And there's something about that wasn't like a shocking thing that terminated it, because MTV had run a show previously that was The Real World, where this guy hit this girl who was a cast member, and he was taken out. They had this whole like a very special episode thing. But that one, they didn't do it. They just kind of kept rolling and moved forward with it. And I feel like there was something that happened
No,
where we
no,
sort of started to normalize that
Alexandra,
behavior.
let me jump in on that one, because I was actually at Nickelodeon when that hell happened, which that was one of our properties. There was a claim against Nickelodeon for inciting violence, and my boss had to literally watch every single episode of. I think it was under racketeering and inciting violence against Jersey Shore. She literally had to watch every single episode and go through it and beyond
Oh,
that.
poor
So
thing. That's horrible.
no, it was
Can I
horrible. It
can I
was
jump
unfortunate.
in? Can I
It
jump in
was.
with a perspective here? Sorry, this is Vinay. One of the
I'm working with an NGO that is creating a program for helping parents get digital literacy because there isn't anything out there to help parents navigate their kids through the digital age. In the 80s and 90s, there was all of that Spock's Guide to Parenting and all of that stuff that was there that many of us had access to figure out. But this new perspective, how do you balance that, taking away all the devices versus monitoring it? Or half the parents don't even know that there are apps, that there's restrictions you can put in, and all of this stuff, right? So it starts at the home. I completely agree with it. And the old school parenting methods need an upgrade, and there isn't anything out there. So there's a foundation called End Now Foundation, which is actually creating an amazing program, and parents are signing up like crazy here in Asia because they just want guidance on how to do this. So I think that's also an important piece.
I
Well, I
think
I mean,
think
it's
the
interestingly
we
though that there
we
is a
basically
correlation between.
centralize all of our stuff, so the kids don't have like TVs in their rooms or things like that. I mean, I think that actually makes it so much harder to monitor. That if they want to do anything electronic, they end up having to come out into a common room, and it forces us to interact and talk. I mean, they've actually said there have been studies that have been done, and I thought this was a very interesting study. There have been studies that were done, and this was at least 10 years ago, even, but it was a longitudinal study that said that even accounting for differences in family income and intellect and things like all of the external factors. The one thing that consistently led to the greatest likelihood of child success, right? So the likelihood that your kid would actually be a successful, productive member of society, not a CEO necessarily, but somebody who was not in jail, not poor, not whatever, you know what I mean? Like an active member of society, is having dinner with your kids 3 times or more a week. Isn't that interesting? That it really is. There's some sort of interaction that has to happen, or a feeling of accountability or something. I'm not I mean, there's something about that that actually
Dave, you were
has a lot
I
of.
Dave,
would
you were
agree
trying to
with
say
you,
something.
That's
Alexandra.
human
Can I
connection,
just
and
ask
this
I
study
would agree
done,
with that.
one
in
second? Can I just
addiction
get
and all
Dave?
the the psychiatry problem by Gabor resulted the overwhelming evidence of loss of connection or lack of connection with anyone that is related with addiction and a lot of mental problems. So that connection is created with communication and spending time with each other.
Dave, Dave.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, man. And I think
I know you're trying to get in there, and it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
we had the we
there is
women first. I get it. We got that here, but you were trying to
there
get
is
in for a while.
there's a correlation between the less rules in the household and the strength of the relationship between the kids and the love. It's statistically, Professor James Dobson is the kind of big figure on this. He runs a charity called Focus on the Family, and I find that a really fascinating point because my natural inclination is to impose more rules in the household, but actually he says, you concentrate on the relationship, reduce the rules, and that's a surefire way of success. But Cal, I want to go back to the two options that you laid out, which was, is this about the parents, option one, or is this about the what has become acceptable within the kind of sets or the squads within society? I think it's definitely the latter, i.e., there is the acceptance and the social kudos behind being able to execute a kind of well put together video, and the kudos behind that has I think that is the driving part, more so than the parenting, just from my point of view.
I think
So
you
if I
have to
could
sort of.
take Alexandra's point. Oh, sorry, Sharon. You want to go ahead? I just wanted to just build on something he said, and then Alexandra's point. So when Alexandra says having three dinner 3 times a week, which I think, I, by the way, one of the major decisions I made about 10 years ago was making sure that I pick up my kids 3 days a week, right, from school, which who knows what that's going to do. Who knows? Because there's no, like, it's a lifetime outcome, right? So who knows? But so even if parents do things like that, my question to Alexandra, that's good research. And then to Dave's point, like, even if they do that and it doesn't work, like, so that's or if it doesn't work, what happens, right? And why is it? Is that? And then, sorry, so Sharon, yeah. Go on.
Yeah, so I was going to lead into that actually. I was on both spectrums, right? I was a single mom and also a married mom. And oftentimes it was difficult to find and carve out the time. Yet we always made sure that weekends we had dinners with the children. But what we did was we connected with our community to also help us. So we had cleanup days on our streets where the children were responsible for going out and picking up trash in the neighborhood and having conversations with the neighbors. Wintertime, it was their responsibility to see who is on our street are elderly and couldn't shovel. It was your responsibility to do so. So helping them understand how to be altruistic and how to be philanthropic in nature was really helpful. My daughter's now 21, and even though she's a social influencer, she uses her voice to amplify those who are weaker. That's her passion because she's been taught that since childhood. I think those things help. And I'm also having conversations with my neighbors, right? If you see my daughter at the bus stop and she's doing something, please let me know. Have the conversation with me because I think it takes a village to raise a child. So we have that in place. And also, I'm from a different culture where our grandparents are in the home. They're also helping out with the children. Some of these things are going away, right? We don't have that sense of connectivity as we used to. So you can do the best that you can, but it leads back to what Gabby said, where the external society is giving them a reward that we cannot. So you really have to fight against the waves. And I'm thinking Vinay's thought on sort of teaching parents other ways that are more advanced or more modern. It's going to be key in revolutionizing how children are raised.
I mean, I agree. We didn't have, unfortunately, a strong community connection at all, but we did have other family members that were here, that were around, because we're also from a different culture. So we had we had like, aunt and uncle and, those kind of people that my mom would leave us with, but that would be people who were our family, that were, we had additional support, which I think is a really important thing. I mean, I think people are exhausted. Like that's one of the big problems. And I always wonder, like, if we tied, like this kind of the tendency of parental disengagement, not like in a malicious manner. I don't mean that in like a malicious fashion. I just mean it's exhausting to parent. It's tiring. It's really hard. It gets harder as you age. It gets harder and more complicated. And you're like, God, and as your career grows, it's like you have less and less brain space and patience to deal with things. But I think that there's something, there has to be something that that counteracts that exhaustion or that desire to just tune out. Like that's the other thing about TV, right? Is TV is actually, your brain is more asleep when you watch TV than when you're asleep. Your brain's more active when you're sleeping than when you're watching TV. Isn't that interesting? But one of the and that's why people like to zone out and watch TV. But I think there is something about this issue of exhaustion and decreasing engagement, because we're more productive than we've ever been, right? Workers are expected to do more, accomplish more, achieve more in shorter periods of time, whether that's self-imposed or work imposed or socially imposed. There's something that's requiring us to, associate our careers with our personas and make sure that that we're constantly driving to do more. But that actually reduces the amount of brain space and patience and just ability to engage with other things, because brain work is exhausting, physical work is exhausting, brain work is exhausting. Doing more in less time every day. I mean, I always wonder if, like, is this tied to like that 1981 change in, wage flattening and stuff? And so people actually have to work more to get the same amount of money. And, maybe that is one of the things that has led to this exhaustion, because there's not a higher amount of reward with work. It's basically more just fear of getting fired, which is also more exhausting than working to get a reward. Is very different from working to not get fired. It's just more tiring. So I always wonder, like, how many social impact how many things that happened in society that didn't intend for this to be a consequence ended up happening, and we ended up like with this particular thing. I don't blame things like, like video games or whatever. Statistically, they've been shown to not have like that kind of impact that people have put on them. But I do think that there is something about this disengagement with not just your kids, but in general. We've all, had more social disengagement, not just through COVID, but over a generation. So, I mean, I just wonder if, like, how do we get that back? Is that something people even want? I mean, like, there was a video of this guy who wrecked a subway so that he could meet Meek Mill. Like, it's just this sort of really, there's not a lot of sense of,
I can
I
respond to that.
I say, guys, we also have Dr. Heidi, Falcon, Alonso, Wissam. They've just all joined, right? So if you guys wanted to jump in, this stage works. You just jump in, right? Otherwise, the crowd here just keeps going, right? That's how it works. So yeah, do jump in here. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in here. And number one, I'm agreeing to all of what you're saying. The struggle is real. Parenting is not something easy. It is the gravest job of a human can do, is to bring a child to this world and teach him the basic skills so he can survive. It's like preparing your own army. It's really a huge responsibility. But I think this generation and the newer generation, we have some we shifted away from the traditional parenting because we thought it was cruel. We thought it was not fair. We thought it was too much work. We thought it was, and most about the traditional parenting involves you doing something with your father, or doing something with your mother. And now when we think of it, no, I'm not gonna make my child work. This is abuse. I'm not gonna make my child do errands. This is abuse. And I'm not gonna interfere with his choices. I want him to be a free thinker. And all of these new, and most of them are good intentions. I'm not gonna say they are not good intentions. I believe in them, but we interpreted them in a way that we left our children alone in this world. And whether because we are fighting to not get fired, or even in third world countries, when you go there and you see the poor people there, and you understand that family is everything to them, not work, not money, not even learning. It's family first. You understand that we miss the traditional values. We put them aside. We need to find a mixture between the two, that we do not abuse the new ideas in a way that we neglect our children, or and the other way, return to the traditional way, and also think, oh my, I'm being harsh on my children, I'm being too strict, I'm gonna drive them away from me, they're gonna run away from home. All of these uh, things we need to figure a mix. I'm not here to give an answer, but I'm saying this is the problem. We are a new generation with new ideas, but we are failing to implement them in the correct manner. This is my thought, and thank you.
I would like to respond to the chronic stress that was shared earlier by Alexandra. A lot of this apathy and exhaustion is because of the chronic stress that we are all facing. And there are ways and lifestyle choices and changes that we can all incorporate based on science, based on research, that can help us overcome this chronic exhaustion by reducing stress, naturally allowing ourselves to recover from that stress, removing our body's stress responses because we are so tuned into them that we don't even realize that there is an alternative way to allow yourself to de-stress, decompress. And when you allow yourself to be in a relaxed state, then your creative mind comes on, then you find solutions, then you are more engaging, and you develop these strong connections with your children that are so conducive to a positive experience. And and you also teach them that by taking care of yourself, doing these activities together, as of instead of watching TV or something, maybe engaging in certain self-care routine together, that could be an activity which could be nourishing for both at any age.
Hey, Tyler,
Yes,
I
sir.
think you got to take this back. You got a new room, right?
We do
Coming
soon, but
up?
I got like 10 we can run through real fast, and then we'll go to Cheryl's room.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
All
So, Houston Firefighter Pension Fund makes Bitcoin, makes a big purchase into Bitcoin and Ether. The fund has invested $25 million in crypto in what appears to be the first for a U.S. public pension plan. And for those who don't know, pension funds, like the California Teachers Pension Fund, CalPERS, and these are massive, 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 massive pools of money, and they have to look for investments. And a lot of the VC firms that invest in startups get their money from these funds. And so this Houston Firefighter Pension Fund investing in Bitcoin and Ethereum is really quite interesting as an alternative to investing in VCs and startups and whatnot. And that they all kind of have a flock-like behavior as well. So this could translate into incredible amount of momentum into crypto if it works out well for this fund. So then,
There's a new fund that just entered Polygon also. That is doing a Polygon in one of their, which is it's a platform on top of Ethereum. It's a different kind of consensus. It's faster and cheaper than Ethereum, but it's in Ethereum's ecosystem and it's doing very well. It does a lot of different things, including decentralized finance. But yeah, there's a lot of funds that have been moving into this area a little bit because of the ETFs that are coming out. Valkyrie's coming out today. Which is another ETF, Bitcoin ETF futures fund, but it's very interesting to see these moves in. But I don't know that the people in Bitcoin and other forms of crypto really understand that institutional money does not work the way retail money does. Like they flow in and out without necessarily. It's not based necessarily on fundamentals. Like a lot of times they have their own rules, and so they'll see large flows in and large flows out, and think that it has something to do with like cratering price or something like that. And that's one like piece of education that still has to happen, which is institutional money is just different.
next one from India today, that a policeman has been arrested after a drone drops a cache of weapons in the Jammu Kashmir region, which is kind of a conflict zone because the borders aren't as clear as everyone might like them to be. Militants in the Jammu and Kashmir area facing a shortage of weapons, terror outfits from Pakistan have started sending weapons and cash via drones to fighters in the region. Very wild use case of drones developing there. The next from Ken, that China stops airing Boston Celtics games after a Boston Celtics player calls Xi Jinping a brutal dictator.
Oh, come on.
And
But wait, I follow basketball a little bit, so this guy may have also been not played. The talk is that he's not even being played by the Celtics team in the last game that they played here. He was supposed to get some minutes, so it's just the NBA is a very interesting. These players are going to be very conflicted as time goes on.
then Heyman sends in this one from CNBC that Google is still all in on healthcare. Chief Health Officer Darren DeSalvo says Google shut down its health unit in August, but it's still all in on healthcare industry and consumer health tech, says Chief Health Officer Karen DeSalvo. And Poppy found one from Fast
I'm
Company.
sorry, Tyler.
Yes.
Someone's mic is hot.
Yeah. We're going to be out in 3 minutes. Hang tight. The next one is from Poppy from Fast Company that the headline says the complete A to Z guide to how Amazon is taking over everything. Everything you need to know about Amazon's staggeringly large and ever mutating domain, most of which you can't even see. So I tweeted that out. That could be a fun read. And TechCrunch announcing today that Spotify opens up to video podcast publishing through their podcasting platform called Anchor. So if you are a podcaster on Anchor, which I am, Tech News Around the World is in fact a podcast through Anchor, which Anchor then sends it to Google Podcasts, Spotify Podcast, Apple Podcast, and 10 other podcasting platforms. And now you can send video podcasts. So if you're a YouTuber, your YouTube is essentially channels of video podcasts. So this is Spotify competing with YouTube. And now you know why I said yesterday that YouTube just made YouTube Music free and available to everybody, so that you could listen to YouTube Music while you even have the app closed with the screen black, or when you're in other apps, so you're running YouTube Music in the background. And I said they're probably doing this, not even probably, I said they are doing this to compete with Spotify, because Spotify is going to launch a YouTube, their videos podcasting, essentially. Did I not? Did somebody can confirm I said this in the past? It was
Yeah,
Yeah.
24 or 48 hours ago. So now
it was 24.
24.
Tyler,
Thank you. Yes.
regarding the Amazon thing, I sent you a picture 2 days or 3 days ago with the Amazon alphabet, everything Amazon does and all the sectors they are in. It was really, really an illustrative picture over how they are actually taking over sector after sector after sector. I didn't tweet it out. I just sent it in a DM to you on Twitter. But it's a really good map of where they are going, and they have a total coverage. Johan Dan.
Mm-hmm. Next up from Dr. Fran, that the Digital University in Madras, IIT Madras, to offer advanced diploma program in virtual reality. To be offered in both online and offline modes, the diploma course is open for anyone with an engineering background. And the next one is an interesting take on Facebook hiring 10,000 people for the metaverse. That was a headline from this past week. And this tweet from Brielle Garcia says Facebook isn't hiring 10,000 new virtual reality engineers because they need them to build the platform. They're hiring them to deprive the rest of the industry from having those engineers. They're hiring them to stop any competition before it can even get started. Interesting take. The next one from Dr. Fran from the Next Web. Did we discover a new force of nature? New results from CERN. CERN is in Switzerland and a crown jewel of the scientific world. Results suggested muon decay was only happening about 85% as often as the electron decay. Assuming the results is correct, this could only be explained by something new in the particle realm. Results suggest beauty quarks decay into electrons and muons at different rates. I know that sounds incredibly geeky, and it is, but also can be incredibly important for understanding how the universe works fundamentally and pave the way for incredible new technologies. So that's an interesting article. The next one is what Dr. Fran just had 4 in a row. This is crazy. From Wired, it says microplastics may be cooling and heating the Earth's climate. Tiny bits of plastic are swirling in the sky, and a new model suggests they could be subtly affecting the climate. Evan sends in this one from CNBC that blacklisted Chinese tech giant Huawei has paid super lobbyist Tony Podesta $500,000 to lobby on its behalf during the third quarter, so in the past 3 months. And maybe that's why we had that whole release of the Miss Meng from Huawei back to China.
80.
The next one, I believe Evan found this one. Who found this one? The Israeli minister warns, and strange coincidence, it's about 5G yet again. We were just talking about Huawei. Israeli's minister warns as U.S. presses on China ties, meaning the U.S. is telling Israel you can't have Chinese 5G. So the way they phrase it is, Israeli minister warns as U.S. presses on China ties, we are in a 5G Cold War. We are currently in a new unfamiliar type of war, a 5G Cold War, Communications Minister Yoaz Mendel said at the Cybertech New York conference. Israel is committed to working with trusted communication infrastructure for its own national security, Communications Minister Yoaz Hendel said at the Cybertech New York conference on Wednesday. Hendel's speech came a day after a meeting in Washington in which U.S. officials expressed a concern to the minister about possible Chinese involvement in Israel's 5G network. We are currently in a new unfamiliar type of war, a 5G Cold War, Mendel said at the Cybertech conference. In this Cold War, Israel is committed to trusted networks, first of all, because of its own national security interests. Hendel warned that communication infrastructure is sensitive and tends to be the weak link in the cyber world. That is why I am here in the U.S., Israel's best ally. The Biden administration has been working more intensively with Israel than previous administration to ensure that the core of Israel's 5G internet network not be Chinese, a source with the knowledge of the matter said. As I've been telling you in this room dozens of times over the past several months, that America's telling all of its allies you cannot have Chinese 5G because that's spyware. And if you take it, well, that's pretty much a strong signal that you're going to side with China in our upcoming decoupling separate economies to separate, complete different global economies. You can be on Team China, you can be on Team US, up to you. And your choice of 5G will tell us which side you're going to be on. It's been fun. Choose wisely. So, lastly, somebody just sent in one. Who was it? Slid into my DMs. It was Evan from DW in Germany that President Biden has now very publicly vowed to defend Taiwan in case of an attack by China, deviating from U.S. policy of quote-unquote strategic ambiguity, and has resulted in a very angered response from Beijing saying that America cannot make such statements. How dare you?
Then his team backtracked, so he really blew it there. He misspoke,
Biden
allegedly.
backtracked it.
I saw another article where they
Oh
they
wow.
pulled. Yeah,
Oh.
so he.
Yeah, exactly. And also, China doubled down and said they're not making any concessions when it comes to Taiwan.
Didn't Biden say something previously, and then the press team came out and sort of watered it down? I think this is new because I saw this morning, and I mean, in actual fact, I can't remember when the agreement was. Was it in 1979? The sort of between China, there was an agreement with China between the U.S. and also an
The
agreement with.
UN? You mean when get the clips ready, guys. You mean when the UN turned its back on Taiwan and accepted China in order to promulgate the dollar to China? That deal?
I'm not sure. I mean, you probably know more
Where
about
where
it
where they
than I do.
where they booted a member out of the UN and installed China and gave them a Security Council seat? You mean that? Because they needed 500 million people to buy the fake money we put out because of that? Oh, okay.
No, well, I don't know when that was. I don't know whether we're conflating two issues here.
Not that Chris has strong feelings about this.
Yeah, I
You're
mean,
gonna clip me
I'm
again,
talking
aren't you?
about when basically China and Taiwan were formally recognized by the US, both of them first. So this might have been subsequent to that.
So Taiwan was recognized immediately after the Cultural Revolution, and they were known as Taiwan, the Republic of China. We traded with them. We did a lot of things with them. They were continually at war with the People's Republic of China. But when we stepped away from the gold standard with Bretton Woods, we needed to find consumers of our non-asset backed fiat currency. And what that meant was we needed to sell things or sell our dollar to people. And one way you sell money to people, because remember, money's just about time, is by consuming their time making goods. And there was a major arbitrage between the money we paid to Chinese people for their time and the money we paid ourselves for our time. And that's where we're at. And I'll shut up now because I have a team meeting.
Okay. And to be continued. So we're going to hop over to the blockchain showdown. The big brouhaha between Cardano versus Ethereum is going on, hosted by Cheryl and Messi and Alexandra and others. And then we will meet again at this time zone tomorrow for our very special Saturday edition where we go through the 20 hours of tweets that I still have to go through, plus the 24 hours of tweets that will happen between now and then. So do join us for that. It's fun as usual. And have a wonderful weekend, everybody. It's been a wonderful week.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Tyler. Thanks, Carl. Thanks,
Hey,
guys.
감사합니다.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
안녕히
Good to see
계세요.
you.
Tyler.